Tariq says he says he's in, but he doesn't see anybody. I think he might be looking at the video. Can hold on, let
Nah,
me.
you had the wrong. You have the wrong link.
I gave him the wrong link.
We actually live. We actually live. We iron that out in a second. But let's just let the people know that we're here live today, and we doing a show. Basically, we have folks who are in the in the world of, I would call it the world of Dr. York. Who has played a role or played a part or been witnessed or know the teachings. People who have been a part of that man's life, who knew him personally and have been there from the beginning, from the Bushwick days. So we're gonna have a conversation today, which I hope will trigger something bigger out of this. Because a lot of folks, I've seen Chuck and others on other platforms, but I would love to see this go on to be a book and a movie. So 200, 100 years from now, anybody try to bring this craziness up, we have the defense ready, for so forth. All right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't even know how to do that, bro. I don't even know how to do that because, I'm not tech savvy. All right. So this is what we're going to do. Hey, peace to Tariq, who just joined us. Peace, brother Garfield, the Dagger Squad. Thanks for joining us, brother. Appreciate you coming in. All right. So the first question, let's just introduce everybody on the panel right now. Right? Let me start from my left-hand side. Brother Anpu, can you introduce yourself, my brother?
Yeah, brother Anpu. I was known as Anpu inside the organization, but I'm no longer part of the organization. Left the organization officially in 2009. So I'm an ex-Nuwaupian member. And while I was in the organization, I was known as Anpu Satuk Unk or Anabu Seti Unk. And that's it.
All right. Next beside him is my brother Chuck. Go ahead, brother. Introduce yourself.
Who's that?
Go ahead, my brother.
Who, me?
Yeah. Introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, I didn't even see it. Yeah, Chuck Morgan. Running the Nuwaupianism.com. I'm an active person out.
I see several mics muted. Tariq's mic is muted. Hey. Are we still live?
All right. I'm back on. I'm back on. All right. So let me introduce to you guys. Yeah, I got it. All right. So let me introduce to everyone right now, a special guest, of course, for the evening. a wonderful sister who I met recently, and she's a very bright sister that's going to enlighten us on a lot of things that happened in the past. This is Sister Donnie Addison. Go ahead, sister.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing tonight?
All right, beautiful.
Well, I basically, long story short, I'm pretty sure we're going to get into it more later. Moved in the tab with my mom when I was about 5, 6 years old. Older brother, older sister, younger sister. I grew up in Brooklyn, in Bushwick, and eventually went to Philadelphia, Cleveland, Edenton, Macon, Philly. I've been all over the place as far as mosques are concerned. Bushwick was my home for most of my life, but like I said, this is my first time doing this. I'm kind of nervous. I'm waiting for the dialogue to start so I can just pretty much just start spewing.
Yeah.
No problem. All right. Beside you, I got my brother Farooq. Go ahead, my brother. Introduce yourself. Unmute your mic. Introduce yourself.
Yes. Peace, everyone. Peace, everyone.
Peace, Farooq.
How's it going?
Good.
Farooq, I was introduced to the Ansar law doctrine back in 87, 88. Spent some time upstate New York. Finally moved in or was a part of the community around 89, 90. Went by the name of Nuwaupian during Nubian Hebrew time. My camera's not working, but those that know my mother, I'm Hannah's oldest son. Spent a lot of time down here in the South, setting up communities, specifically in Florida, raising funds, this, that, and the other. And since leaving the organization, I've spent a lot of my time and effort just trying to correct what I feel was my own debt or burden that I feel to correct a lot of these things that I used to teach and spread and whatnot. So I'm here for the dialogue. I appreciated Chuck and the effort and everyone else effort in this same cause. I know I've spent a lot of time on Chuck's website, Facebook group, maybe about 2 years. And I just hope that everyone appreciated my presence as much as I appreciated theirs and their input and a lot of things that I've learned from them, especially from Donnie. We had a chance to talk. This is my first time hearing her voice, but just hearing from her and some of the things, it helped put some things, my own history in perspective. And let's get the dialogue started.
All right. Next beside him, we got Brother Maru. Maru. All right. Maru probably is busy. Let me get to my brother Tariq. Tariq Noel, how are you doing, my brother? Introduce yourself.
So I'm doing fine. Peace to everyone in the panel. So my name is Tariq Noel. I was born and raised in the community back when it was Ansar Allah, back in upstate New York, down in South and even in down south in Georgia. So I was also one of the child molestation victims, as well as many others, and I testified in court as well. So,
okay. All right. Somebody just jumped in. Who is that? Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, greetings, Brother Michael. I've been I was in the community since 1988 up until 2012. I lived in Brooklyn, Spring Valley, Philadelphia, Miami. Was visiting New York up until early 2012. Worked on various aspects of the legal case of Liberian. One of the petitions of clemency that failed with Obama in 2009, 2010. And a host of other things. I actually worked on a lot of stuff with Brother Rick that he's familiar with. So I've been around for a minute.
All right, all right. And of course, I'm Brother Garfield. I'm the CEO of the Dagger Squad INC, and we're doing a program today. Of course, we have the urban economic show that we do on Sonata's channel, Black News 102, every Wednesday at 6 p.m., where we try to educate the community on economic empowerment and doing for self. So I just want to say, I just want to say thank you to everybody for showing up tonight. That's the first and foremost. Thanks for showing up. You know, it's always difficult to talk about things that we've been through, and to talk about things that folks might not be receptive, you know, and they might not want to receive certain information. But let me start off this. Let me start with let me introduce my last brother. I forgot my brother, Dagger Squad, Alan, Rob on. You want to introduce yourself, my brother?
Peace to the panel. My name is Rob Bourne. I'm just listening to the dialogue, see what I can learn and gather. Peace.
All right, cool. All right, let me talk about so let me just get to the point, and I don't want to drag this out where people are talking for 10 hours and so forth. I just want to get to some of the main points, and I'm just gonna talk off basically from what I know. I did a 4-part series on Blog Talk 2 years ago, which is all over YouTube right now. And me and Brother Rick, aka Brother Anpu, did a very good 4-part series that explained the case and what went on with the case. Let me go back into time and ask my brother, the brother that spoke last, after Farooq, the brother that used to live in Miami and used to live in Spring Valley and so forth. Seeing that from your time from 1988, can you explain to us as far as when we hear about allegations about York with we always hear stuff about him and young boys or young females. Back in the days, were there any rumors or anything back in 88 in the early 90s that caught your ears? Not that you witnessed it. Did you ever hear anything?
No, I'm gonna be honest. On the last show we did, what I was explaining was because I was trying to paint the picture because of the lifestyle we lived. We were so busy all the time from morning till night that at that time, you know, we weren't really aware of anything that was going on at that time. I did find stuff out later towards the end, going into the early 2000s when things changed. But back then, you gotta remember, we got out, we were pedaling all day. Came in, we did guard. So your day consisted of 16 to 20 hours. It was set up like that, so you couldn't pay attention to what was going on. As everybody knows, all the communities, you know, the men, women, and children were separated. So that was done in.
Hold on a second here. Hold on, my brother. Where's Farooq at? Why are you muting that brother's mic? Hold on a second here. I'll mute your mic, my brother. I don't know why Farooq. I don't know if you accidentally did that, but.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what the last thing you heard me say was, just so I don't have to repeat myself.
I wasn't trying to mute his.
Oh, okay. Because you muted Meru's mic and you muted his mic.
I might have hit it by accident. That might have been me.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
But again, as I was saying, what was the last thing I said, so I don't repeat myself again, not to waste time.
You said that you worked sometime up to 12 to 20 hours, so you were so busy.
Yeah, they consisted of, usually 16-hour days. Most of the brothers were out, like, again, they were up at dawn, made Fajr prayer, then they were out on the streets till any time of the night. Then a lot of us had to come in and do guard shifts. It could have been anywhere from 3 to 4 hour shifts. So at that time, no, I was not aware of anything that was going on at that time, especially in the early 80s, because we were so busy doing a bunch of things. The other thing I was saying, if you didn't hear, if the mic was muted, as everybody knows, the communities were set up where men had their own bait or living quarters, so did the females and children. Men, women, and children were separated. And, looking back on it now, obviously there was a reason for that. So it was just at that time, no, we were so busy during the Ansar community times that I got to be honest, at that time, no, I wasn't aware of what was going on. I only found things out later. So that would be
Let me ask you a quick question because I don't know you. My name is Brother Garfield. And is there anything within the Ansar, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit with the teachings and the case and everything. So I don't want, because I don't know if I'm going to get back and talk back to you after everybody else talk.
Right.
Seeing you talk, right now gives me, you paint me a picture, because I heard about Dr. York in the 90s. I came into this country in the 90s, like late 80s, 90s. I heard about him from Brooklyn because I used to go to Windward's Collide, where the Mosque number 7C for the Nation of Islam, and you guys used to be out somewhere out there selling books and so forth. So I know about Dr. York that way. But let me ask you this. Is there anything that you hold on to right now that you were taught by him as far as teachings that you hold on right now in your life that you practice?
No, I've completely moved on from that 100%. So I want to make that clear. That's my position on that, because I mean, people got to understand a lot of the stuff that he was doing. There's a lot of stuff, obviously, that he ciphered from other information, so we can't get it confused. There was a lot of things that he said, took from other teachings, and added his little twist to it. So some of those things, you know, they're naturally there as far as information and knowledge. But as far as the whole ideology, no, I don't hold on to any of that stuff, because see, part of the process of moving forward, you have to completely just some of those things. You know, you just have to completely, you know, negate that to move forward. So no, I don't hold on to any of it. I don't, at the same token, I don't blame, you know, Dr. York for my choice of being in it. I made that choice myself. But as far as the situation and the case and working on the case and then really uncovering the facts with the victims and things of that nature, I couldn't deny that. So I can't support or stand behind anybody that obviously harmed children, you know, of all ages. That's what woke me up, because the more I got involved in the case and had access to more information, I started to see the inconsistencies.
Oh, okay.
People got to understand, when you're in that mindset, people will always say to everybody that's coming forward now, victims or ex-members, you know, you'll hear this nonsense. Why you saying, you know, why you coming forward now? Or you'll hear the old rhetoric, oh, you guys are just bitter. People don't understand when you're locked in that ideology, you're not looking at it in the same perspective. So when we were locked in, caught up under all those illusions, we weren't coming from that perspective. So now that we see things in a different light because we have all the information, this is why now we come forward, because not everybody left the organization because they were bitter. They just simply woke up, because that's the old classic excuse the Nuwaupians will use. Oh, everybody coming forward is just bitter. I ain't bitter about shit, but at the same token, I'm not going to sit here and support no man that harms children. And that's just the bottom line. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I don't hold on to any of that stuff. I completely
by the way, respect you for that, bro. I respect you for that. And you know, we need more stand-up people like you. All right. All right. Let me move on to brother Anpu for a second. We have a question in the back chat. But before I even ask you that question, what role, brother Anpu, what role did you play as far as before? We're talking like, what time period did you get involved with the community, and how you got involved, and did you hear anything while you were on in the community?
I joined the community about 1992, around about that time. 1991, 92, from 1990 to 92, just kind of vague. And you know, back then it was just a matter of you know, information. And in fact, when I first got into the information, I stumbled across some books. I remember it was whatever time, you know, I'm from DC in Maryland, you know, DMV area. And we had a big winter storm that year. And I was trapped, trapped over a friend's house. A whole bunch of us were trapped over there for about a week. And he had these books. He was a barber. He worked at a barbershop. And one of the Ansars used to set up at his barbershop. And so he had a lot of the books. So we started going through some of the books. And that's how I got kind of turned on to the information. The first book, or not the first book, but one of the books that caught my eye was the fact that it was saying that Adam and Eve had a mother and father. I was like, wow, you know. So from there, so at that point, I didn't even know that Imam Isa and Dr. Malachi York or Rabboni Yeshua, I think at the time, was the same person. I thought, because he had multiple books under different pen names at that particular time. So I'm thinking it was a couple of authors, and I'm like, you know, wow, let me look into this. So that's how I got, you know, attracted to the doctrine and you know, pursued it. Then I found a class in DC headed by brother named Sadiq at the time, but he's Mental Hotep, or he probably go by a different name now. End up finding the class that was being taught there, and he had just became a teacher there. And then from there, you know, I just kept at it until I joined the organization. Then I moved down to Georgia, moved on the land in 1997, and I was there up until we got evicted by the government once the land was forfeited in 2004. Matter of fact, me and another brother, we were the very last two people on the land. So to answer your question, though, that entire time, I never saw anything myself. And really up until the arrest, or actually right prior to the arrest, you know, because see, you got to understand the culture of living on the land. People that lived there, moved there, there were people that moved up on the land and people who left. Most of the time, the people that left, they got kicked off the land for doing something, you know, something wrong or not following some kind of rules or whatever the case is. So we saw people, like a revolving door. We saw people come, saw people go. So some people that were there before me, I've seen some people leave. And the idea is that when people leave, they're bitter, and they're leaving because they got kicked off and they're bitter, this, that, and the third. So you start hearing about things, but you kind of just put it under the umbrella of, oh, they're just bitter, they're making up stuff. So, so no, I didn't see anything personally, but yeah, you started to hear some stuff prior to him being arrested. There was some things being said, going around by people who left, but you kind of tend to write it off because of bitterness, that whole idea of being bitter, so not to be long with it, that's pretty much.
All right. Let me just get this question out of the way that the person just asked for you and Mike. The person is best kept. Question for Anpu and Brother Mike. Did Mr. York ever explain why he asked you for your help with his freedom? In hindsight, do either of them feel like they were manipulated? If yes, how? You want me to read it again? This for Mike. Anpu. Go ahead.
All right, I'll answer that first. He asked me to get involved with helping him in his case because he after he was arrested, right when he was arrested, there was a very, very small few people that was dealing directly with his case, even new information. Like even us that live on the land, we were in the dark, because it was kind of hush hush of what's going on. You only heard things about, obviously, on the news and stuff, but as far as dialogue on what's really going on, we were in the dark. So then at a certain point, I started to communicate to him when he was arrested. I started to write him. And I used to write him and describe what I observed, what I felt that was going on, and what we should do, at that particular time. So, and he appreciated what I used to tell him and report to him, so much so that he saw that, he said I have a scientific mind, I have an analytical mind, I give solutions and say what it is and raw information. So from there, this is what he told me. So from there, he asked me to go ahead and get involved. He said, if anybody gives me any problems of getting involved, just let him know to speak to him. So that's him kicking me in the door to actually help directly on his case. And from that point forward, I helped directly with every single thing and privy to every single thing from start to finish.
Okay. Hey, Mike, that's for you too, brother.
Yeah, basically how it works is, York usually selected people he had established long-term relationships with. Now, again, myself, whether it was from the Ansar days up until, recent days, he always appointed people titles. That was one of his little games to kind of create that whole special vibe. I mean, up until the point, like, we had a rotating triad from like 2007 to 2009 that I was teaching in. But pretty much from the beginning when he got incarcerated, I'm going to say 04, 05, he basically wrote me letters, which I have a stack of them here that I'm having in front of me in case we need any references. Basically explaining to me the situation, what was going on. Basically, he came at me with the Liberian angle, as far as which, as I found out and researched further, it was basically all fraud. It was just an honorary thing that was made up, and there's no diplomatic immunity to it whatsoever, because nobody can come forward and produce any document other than hearsay. And if you claim to be a Nuwaupian and you deal with sound right reasoning, you got to have evidence to support that. And most of them have no evidence to support it. Trust me, I worked on this shit for years. There's nothing you can bring forward to confirm it. But bottom line is that was kind of my angle in. But then I also worked with the inner courts on human human rights, which we did a bunch of work with that, trying to bring in the international courts on torture things. I mean, we tried every angle you can pretty much think of. If you would have told York that he was Papa Smurf, he probably would have believed it. I mean, it got to the point towards the end, he was so desperate that people were coming to him with all types of crazy ideas to try to get him out, and he would just run with it. I mean, I was just looking at an affidavit that you know, some fake ass affidavit that they made his mother do, claiming in 2001 that he was born in Ghana and she never told him. Just crazy shit like that. But he basically brought me on board because I had a relationship. I mean, I've had bookstores in all the aforementioned states, you know, taught in that rotating triad, was NAB, all those little Mickey Mouse clubs that he created. But basically it was a trust thing, you know, as far as he felt comfortable with certain people. And basically one thing he told me in that letter that he sent me was because fearless, because I basically don't give a shit. And he knows that as far as jumping into something and getting something done. And if you lived in a community all those years, even on, you know, like Anpu was saying, even in Georgia, York was about getting results. If you didn't make money, you weren't building, weren't getting things done, you weren't in his inner circle. He had things set up in layers. He had an inner circle close to him. He had the sheeple that he would take advantage of pretty much. I mean, we could be here all day talking about that. So he knew what he was doing. He selected people because he knew who had talents and who could help. Like Brother Anpu was saying, you know, he had certain gifts that he had pointed out why he wanted to bring him aboard. He knew how to do that to some people, but you know, at the same token, he kept people that he kind of established a relationship with. So for the most part.
All right. I'm gonna Clarence, I'm gonna ask you a question and I want Anpu to answer it real fast. He said, ask Anpu, was it possible for York to contract herpes from an adult and not the children they accuse him of? To me, it's a stupid question, but I'm still going to ask it. All right, Anpu, go ahead, Anpu. Let's respond quickly, 30 seconds.
Well, quickly, he's asking if York can contract herpes from an adult rather than children. I mean, that's of course. Anybody can contract herpes from anybody who has herpes.
Let me ask you this, Anpu. Wasn't it the case that they said that the children got it from him, not that York got it from the children? Oh my God, I can't believe I even read that question. You know what, man? Let's move on.
No, but hold up. But you know, let me just address it. 30 seconds. First of all, people need to understand that the herpes issue was not used at his trial. All right. So whenever people talk about herpes and for or against it, it wasn't used at trial. Now, what it did do is that when York tested positive for herpes 2, that's when his lawyers at the time, which was Garland, Samuel, and Loeb firm, Edward Garland and Manny Aurora, that's when they started to push him, or not push him, but to advise him to start thinking about pleading guilty. Okay, so that's the catalyst for the whole talks about the plea agreement, and a lot of people don't know that. So again, it was his blood work coming back in 2002, late 2002, around August, September, October, that the lawyers started to advise him to think about going towards a plea, because their whole thing was that they will never be able to convince a jury that his positive test of herpes 2 and 2 of the listed victims' test of positive herpes 2, that it wasn't connected. That was the bottom line. All
right, cool. All right. I want the audience to understand. We got 50 people watching. This is gonna be a well-watched show, I could tell. And I want the audience to be attentive. And I want to introduce this sister right now. Sister Addison, I want to introduce you. I want you to tell your story, and I want you to do it in your way. I want you to feel comfortable. All right? You were on the land from Bushwick days. You went upstate New York. Eventually, you ended up on the land in Georgia. Can you tell us how you met Dr. York personally, and how did the relationship develop and so forth? The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Hey guys. I pretty much told my story. Can you guys hear me okay?
For some reason you're chipping in and out, chipping a little bit. Speak again, sister. Let me hear
audio you. Really choppy. I've been meaning to say that, but I didn't want to cut into anybody's conversation.
Okay.
I'm
Your
not sure
audio.
why it's like this.
Everybody else.
She probably
Everybody
has
else. You know what? Do me a favor, everybody. Everybody mute their mic and let the sister alone talk.
okay, and she probably may have to leave right out and come right back in.
Woo. You want to take that chance, sister? Just press N and then come right back in. And she's like, sheesh. Because she's new to the hangout. Just press the stop button.
If it's gonna be a problem, don't do it. We'll bear with it.
All right. Everybody mute their mics and let's see how the sister sound. Everybody mute their mic, please. I'm muted myself. And then continue, sister. Keep talking.
Okay, that sounds better.
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna start talking. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
I can hear you. You sound good.
Okay. Who am I talking? Is that Chuck?
Yeah.
Hey, honey,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and get this over with. My mom, I'm from Jamaica, Queens originally, and I remember being really little, maybe first, second grade, maybe younger than that. My mom we used to have to go to Jamaica. We crossed Jamaica Avenue to go to school, to my mom was taking college classes. I mean, it was Jamaica Avenue. Everybody goes to Jamaica Avenue. And I remember her passing by these brothers in jalabias and, taliyas, and they have the table and they're, propagating. I didn't know what the word was back then, but I know it now. There was this one brother that caught her eye. And within the next couple of weeks, months, I remember her coming home with pamphlets, or the books, whatever they were called back then, and incense. And slowly but surely, our life started to change a little bit. And I remember having to go to school with a little hijab on, a little headpiece, and I knew things were changing. I didn't know what it was, but fast forward, my mom's put an application to move into the community. I didn't really know what the community meant, but my mom said it was for the best of us. I mean, think about it. She's a single mom. She's got 4 kids. She's going to school. She's working 2 jobs. She's trying to make a life for us. And next thing you know, she's putting in some paperwork and she's excited, and she's like, we're moving in. They accepted us. Okay, cool. So, when we move into this place, we've been to newcomers classes and all this stuff, and we move in, and we're brownies, we're new people, and all of a sudden this family unit that we had is like, I mean, I don't want to necessarily say it was shattered. It just wasn't what I remember. My brother was shipped off to the boys' house. My little sister was sent to her group. I went to my group. My big sister went to her group, and we settled in a routine. I remember being a little traumatized at first, I'm not gonna lie. I had an okay childhood. It was a little, it was different. We went to school and we wore the hijab and we would tease sometimes and on for anything. We grew up, your mu'minun, your mu'minati, that's your family. That's what you have. That's what you know. Fast forward, I guess, you guys want to hear what really happened, right? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah, go ahead, Don. We hear you loud and clear. Don't want to interrupt.
So, I need feedback just so you guys let me know I'm not just talking to the screen.
No, we're right here. I'll leave mine open, and then I'll give you. Go ahead, girl.
Okay. So, I remember turning, I want to say 15, 14, 15, and things started to change, and you figure on it because number one, we're raised in an environment where you're a young Muslim woman, you're covered up, you have the veil on, you have the hijab on, and you basically, your future has already been decided for you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and go to school. Nothing is beyond that. You're going to marry a young man that we feel is, you know, your match, and you're going to help with the nation and have babies and blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like the worst plan ever, right?
Right.
So as mu'minati, which means in Arabic, young, faithful women, you know, you imagine the mu'minun, young, faithful men, you imagine the boy that you're going to marry or maybe have babies with,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yep.
That's all we had. All we had was each other. And I remember one year, I think it was the year I turned 15, maybe going on 16. I was in high school. I may have been a sophomore. And all of a sudden, this rule came around that all the girls ages so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so have to get after-school jobs. So it's like, okay, whatever. So I get an after-school job. I get picked to work in Backstreet, which is, you know, kind of like on Hart Street in Brooklyn,
Mm-hmm.
the Hall of Knowledge.
Right.
Because my older sister worked there. My older sister was, wow, I need to rewind. But anyway, my older sister was already one of his wives.
Mm.
Story. So y'all bookmark that so I can, you know. But anyway, so I get to the office and I'm excited because I'm getting to meet the man and see the man. You know, all my life he's been like the Pope, like, you know, he shows up with candy and cupcakes and, you know, he kisses everybody on the cheek and, you know, you feel special. And I remember sitting next to my sister and he walks in, he used to wear cowboy boots.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks in the office and you hear these doom, doom, doom. You hear his footsteps. Like, it's like everybody sits up straighter. Everybody looks cuter when he comes around. And he stops by my sister's desk. And this is like pre-computer, you know. We work in the mailroom. And we're actually doing ledgers by hand. Who brought it? How much money was it? What books did we give them? How much incense? How much soap? Whatever. And he stops on my sister's desk after, of course, he's like, you know, did the Pope thing with everybody else. And he looks at me and he says to my sister, he says, oh, well, who's this? Now, this is a man that has known me since I was a kid. He knows who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And he says to my sister, well, who's this? And he looks at me and I tell him my name. And he's like, oh, my God. He said, you're cute. Your lip. And he says, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm 15. And he says, so when are you going to be 16? And I told him my birthday. And he looks at my sister, who he's married to at the time, and he says to her, damn, I should have waited.
What year was this?
What year was this? I was 15. So backtrack it. Do I have to tell you guys how old I am?
No.
About the late 80s. Let's say late 80s, early 90s. Let's just leave it out there vaguely.
I'm joking. Right. Listen, I'm nervous. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I was in high school still. I graduated in 92. So at 18, I would have to say it had to be 90, 91. And just so you guys know, so I don't bore you, I am telling little anecdotes. I'm telling little stories so people can see the program. People can see the manipulation. People can see the premeditation, for lack of a better word. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We talk a lot. I hear a lot about the trial, Edenton, Georgia, which is so fucking important to me. Excuse my language. I'm so sorry.
Feel free.
Which is so
You're good.
important to me because there are people that I love. I have little sisters and brothers that were affected by that. You know, I'm not trivializing that in any way. My voice here is to make sure that people understand this is not something that popped up out of nowhere. This is not something that just decided to happen in Georgia. I'm trying to show people there is a pattern of behavior for this man, and it always has been. Had he not, I'm not, to this day, I don't even know how he got caught. But I know for a fact, caught, he would still be doing just as much damage to so many other people. And it's like, I feel bad that we have limited time.
Hold a second, Donnie. Hold a second, sister. Hold a second. You want to get something to drink or something? Because I know this is getting kind of touchy. And I want to say something for the audience real carefully. It's the first time Donnie coming on in public and speaking about what happened to her. And I see Dr. YaYa in the audience. She deals with psychiatry and psychology. And she'll tell you she knows what you're going through. And I say this, man. People got to remember, this is in Bushwick at the time, right? When you talk about when you were 15. Was you were at Bushwick, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me help you out. Let me help you out. All right. When was the first time you and Dr. York ever had an encounter sexually, if you want to talk about that? At what age?
With me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was, it was the New Year's. No. I was just turned 18.
Mm-hmm.
It was the New Year's, the year I turned 18.
Okay. Well, he prepped you.
Or maybe it was another holiday.
Okay, but he prepped you before though. He knew, he basically from the jump, you know, he's basically telling your sister, who he's married to, that he should have picked, he should have waited, basically talking about you. So he had his eyes on you. Now, while you're living in Bushwick, is there other people
that was
age that he also ended up having a relationship with?
My sister. Do you want me to tell the story about my sister?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This means that we're rewinding a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
This is before I even was in the picture. I was my sister's 5 years older than me, 4.5 years older than me. My mom and my stepdad in Brooklyn got called to a meeting with Doc. Well, at the time that we didn't call him Doc, then we called him Abu back then. It was Abu, Baba, Doc, whatever. And knew something was happening. As young women, we didn't know what, because we were not privy to that information. However, what turned out happening is Baba or Abu or Imam Isa, whatever you want to call him, he had his eye on my older sister. So he called a meeting with my mom and my stepdad at the time. His name was Ibrahim. Very respectable, trustworthy, amazing man, pillar of the community, if you will. And he pulled my mom and my stepdad to the side and basically told them that trying to marry my sister off, but nobody wanted her. So he was going to take her off their hands. Because we were raised in an environment where you were supposed to be married by the time you were like 18, 19. You know, if you weren't married by then you were like an old maid. They put that shit into effect. And my mom and my stepdad, I wasn't there, but apparently they agreed. They figured, well, shoot, what higher honor could we have than by having our daughter married to the imam? In exchange, my mom and my stepdad were basically given the Cleveland Mosque. So when you're given a mosque, you're special. Like you're up there. Like you're an upper echelon. You done made it. And that's basically what happened. My sister was 18 years old, just recently graduated from high school, a virgin, a mu'minati her whole life, never been with a boy, never been with a man. But your agenda is so devious that you can figure out a way to get this young girl. My sister, well, a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people don't know, my sister was the first of the mu'minati that he actually wed or, you know, took as a wife. And the thing about that situation is it was unprecedented because people thought that that would just be it. She's special. Oh my God, she's special. He took her for a wife. People didn't realize that was the precedent. People didn't realize that he was going to use that to scoop up everybody else he wanted. Okay?
Yep. Got it.
So you send her mom and you send her dad to Cleveland and you give them all this responsibility, and they are so 100% sure that their daughter is in the right fucking hands. They go about their business and they sell your books and your incense and they spread the doctrine in their little world. The imam, you know, their imam and the imama right now, they're in charge. They don't have to worry about anything else. So I'm in Cleveland now, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gone away from my home. I don't know anybody here, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, my mom gets a phone call. Well, it's time for Shahida to come up there. My mom didn't hesitate, which is something that I'm still dealing with right now with my mom. Why didn't you say, oh, no, nah, she's not going up there? My mom is like, okay, you're going to go up there and help with the mission, you know, and you pack my bags. Damn. And you send me to this man that you already gave your first daughter to, you know, and I don't know what's going on. I'm really in my heart thinking truly, number one, I'm safe. Nothing's going to happen to me. He's not going to try. I heard the rumors. He's not going to do anything to me. I'm family. My sister is his wife. You understand what I'm saying? I get up there and it's like a whole nother story. I'm like, I'm being put in a whole nother situation because this man apparently wants to have sex with me. One of the girls that he raised from damn near childhood to be virginal and faithful and trustworthy and pious and all those. We used to have a fucking recite the 12 virtues of a Muslim woman, for God's sake. With you, aren't you the man that taught me these? Aren't you the man that taught me these virtues? And it's confusing and it's terrifying because you grow up in a society that you're really not nothing if you don't have your virginity. You said I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what defined us. That's what defined who you are as a young Muslim woman. And all of a sudden, you're rubbing on me, you're rubbing my nipples, you're making lewd comments about my ass, and it's like, I'm calling you Abu. How do I call you Abu when you're rubbing on my ass? How confusing is that? And I don't know.
Hey, Donnie, this is what I'm gonna do for your sister. This brother Garfield. I'm gonna give you a 5-minute break. I'm gonna bring in my brother Tariq and have him Tariq, at this time period in the 1992, I don't know your age, beloved. What was going on with you at this time period? And Donnie, by the way, Donnie, we feel your pain, sister. Have a drink, take your time. We feel your pain. Trust me. We feel your pain. And hearing this is just upsetting me even more to see that you went through this. All right. And that's why I said, let me just take a break. Let me mute your mic and let me bring, a matter of fact, I'm going to leave your mic open whenever you're ready to come back on and talk some more. If you want to add on to what Tariq says, or if Sister Niki want to jump in, just jump on it. I want you to feel as comfortable. This is the first time you're doing this. I don't want any pressure. You come in and talk. And obviously this is a tough situation, reminiscing this for you. All right? All right, Brother Tariq, go in, my brother.
Yes, so 92.
Tariq's mic is messed up too. Why everybody's mic messed up tonight? What's going on? Hold on a second. Chuck, let me hear your mic, Chuck.
Yeah, check one.
All right, let me hear Anpu.
Yes. Check one, check two. Microphone checker.
All right, Tariq, go ahead, Tariq. Let me hear you right now.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Do you have anything on in your house? Do you have the YouTube on or the Facebook on?
No, I think it's probably cut out for me, but I'm not.
Yeah, it sounds horrible, brother. Sounds horrible. All right, let me mute your mic for a second, Tariq. Let me see if we can iron that out. And in the meantime, Sister Niki, if you could introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello.
Hi. How you doing, sister?
I'm fine. You?
I'm Brother Garfield from the Dagger Squad. I'm glad to have you on. Could you just introduce us? Tell us how you're involved in any way, shape, or form with Dr. Yup.
I was raised in the community. My mom was following the doctrine since I was like 4 or 5. Moved in when I was 11. I became a part of the family at some point and raised as this kid, and eventually as this biological kid. I grew up with Donnie in Brooklyn, and was taken upstate New York when I was a teenager, and taken to Edenton, Georgia. And I'm also the older sister of Tariq and my sister, who was also a victim. So my mom has 3 kids that were victimized by him, as well as I have 2 siblings that are his children. So I was there. I also testified against him.
All right, what age did any incident at all happen? Can you just tell us that? I don't want you to go into details. Can you just tell us what age any incident happened with you and Mr. York?
I was 13.
It was 13. Okay.
I was in Brooklyn. I remember the time when we had to come and, get skills, and we were broken up into small groups. Some people were in the different departments. Some people were in the back office where his wives were, and of us were starting to be separated and being sent to his house to help, hang out and help clean, etc. And so I was 13 when that part started, and would go in his house and,
Niki,
like that.
Let me stop you for a second. I'm gonna ask you a question. Have you personally, I'm gonna get personal right now. Have you gotten therapy for what has happened to you in your life?
I've actually started at the end of 2015 in December. So I've never received therapy beforehand, but it's just a lot of things that I felt were in terms of what I do or how I was feeling or how things, because I just stayed busy and just kept going. So I'm actually in counseling for the first time ever in life. I've been there 13 months now. When I got there, last year, my therapist told me basically that I'm still in survival mode and didn't process anything, which was, interesting and shocking to me because, I testified I'm one of the victims and witnesses who, you know, has always been consistent with what I said. You know, and I even use some of my story and stuff that happened to me to help others, but I've never really focused in on myself. So I'm actually stepping it back and just trying to, you know,
let me ask you
inside.
Let me ask you this. At 13, certain things happened with you. Did you ever have actual children for Dr. York?
No.
Okay.
I do have 2 siblings that are his kids. With my situation, it was a little unique insofar as I was actually raised as his daughter. So even though he was doing things with me, he was also, you know, at one point, I thought he was actually my biological father. So, you know, that's also something that I dealt with that not everybody dealt with. You know, all these things are happening. And for me, he was my father. So
let me ask you this. Your mom had 3 children, Tariq, yourself, and someone else. And how was your mom? What was your mom's response to all those things that you said? Was she still a part of the movement? Did she leave with you? How did she respond to it?
She didn't leave with me. There was a lot of actions happening before I left and after I left, and getting my sister out of there. And there was a lot of back and forth that went when I helped my sister escape from there. Originally, I told my mom that my sister was going to run away, so I picked her up. But really, between me and my brother, who was still there on the land, and my actual biological father that I found when I left, we coordinated to help my sister escape from there. And basically, Doc was trying to have me bring her back. And even he told some people, you know, the outside story was she got kicked out for being rebellious or whatever have you. But the inner side circle story was he told my mom to, you know, have me bring her back. Kind of a struggle and a battle, you know, back and forth. And at the time when I left, I was just like, you know, I'm raised like, hey, you know, if you leave those places, you're basically, you know, as good as dead, or just thinking, okay, I'm going to die. But for me, being on the outside world, even if it meant death, was better than where I was at.
Let me ask you a personal question right now. Are you a millionaire?
No.
Do you live in a mansion?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I live in an affordable house and art community.
Look at that. All right. You know why I asked you that? Do you know why I asked you that?
Yeah, supposedly I got paid. I'm you know, from the FBI and all these things. I did receive a humanitarian award, but in connection to my contributions, but I didn't get paid. I have a car note, actually hasn't been paid this month. So I'm not, I don't live in a mansion. You know, I don't get paid for what I say. There's nothing for me to gain other than repeating the same things I've said before and getting attacked online. But no.
Hey, I just want to say I appreciate you coming on, and you know what, we in the community, I support and applaud what you did. Because of what you did, you have made a monster behind the jail, and I just want to applaud you for that. I just want to applaud you for that.
Yeah.
All right, let me get your brother in here, man. If his signal, he ain't got that cheap cable. I know he definitely ain't no millionaire. It sounded like that. You know what I'm saying? Let me get your brother in on. Can you mute your mic, please, Niki? Thank you. And Sister Addison, I want to let you know that whenever you want to chime in, you can interrupt me, Tariq. Doesn't matter. You have free reign. This is free. And whenever you feel comfortable talking or you want to add on to something, just say, excuse me, I got to add this on, right? So it's the first time you're doing this. I know it's very emotional, going down memory lane. I can't even imagine, to be honest, how you feel. I have never gone through what you've gone through, but right now I feel like I'm about to be in tears just listening to you guys right now. This is sad, man.
Yeah, no.
Really sad. This is really, really sad. The lies, it's not even a matter of 1 and 2 lies. You're talking about hundreds of lies. Or thousands of lies, but you're talking about people who he was intimate with who now have to look at the opposite sex differently. Nicole is going to be like growing up saying this guy was supposed to be like a father figure, ended up messing with me. Now I got to look at each man differently now. So any man comes in our life, you got to watch him with like 5 different eyes, like what he about. You know what I'm saying? So the emotional stuff that she passed on, and then it's in your system. Do you have children, Niki? Do you have children? Your mic's muted. Yeah, your mic's muted, Niki.
Yeah, I have one son. I have a 7-year-old.
Okay.
Which was actually kind of devastating to me when I was pregnant, because I'm like, I didn't have a normal point of reference to go by. So that was like really for me, bringing a kid in the world, not knowing, definitely he would never be how I was, but not having another point of reference. But yes, I do have a child.
Beautiful. All right, and I wish the best for you and your child, man. I don't know if you're with the father or not, but I just hope the relationship is good and workable enough so that you grow this child up much better than what you expect.
Yeah.
Brother, Uncle Tariq, let me call him Uncle. Uncle, unmute your mic, man. Let me see if you got that millionaire sound.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me good?
Damn, man, that Metro PCS line ain't working out, bro. He definitely ain't no millionaire. Ain't go very pay.
Oh, you got me. You got me. It's Metro.
It's
chopping up, or
are you on your laptop?
I'm on my phone.
Damn, I'm trying to figure out how we can hear you. But we got to hear you tonight, brother.
Oh, wait. That sounded better right there.
Yeah, I just took the headphones out.
All right. I'm gonna mute my mic. Tell me.
All right. Say that again.
I said, just tell us a story. Give us a synopsis of what. Relating to Niki's and your own. You know what? We gotta.
All right. Just let me know if I'm breaking up.
All right. Let me ask you this question. Were you one of the victims? Of folks that he abused?
Yeah, you're chopping up, but did you?
Why am I chopping up?
You said was that what?
I was asking. Were you one of the victims? One of the folks that Dr. Yup?
Yeah, I'm like hearing the first part of the question. I don't hear the second part.
Yeah, he's asking if you were one of the victims, one of the young victims that he molested.
Yes.
For the most part.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can hear you clear.
Yeah, just tell your story as it happened.
All right. So like my mom moved into the community a week before I turned 1. You know, she was actually a part of it before, but she physically moved in a week before I turned 1. So from what I can remember, from the first things I could kind of remember growing up in Brooklyn in the Ansar days, like we all would be, you know, the kids would be all living together. You know, when we ate, we sat in like on the floor, like it was like 30, 40 of us almost, like, or 20, 30 of us making a square, and, you know, we'll sit on the floor and eat like that. When it was time to go to sleep, like they'll just basically lay a blanket on the floor, and then we'll kind of like lay down on a blanket, like lined up, and then they'll throw like some sheets over us or whatever for warm. So like we ate together, slept together, played around. You know, we'll get in trouble, we'll get beat, you know? And at this time, I'm like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. In Brooklyn, upstate. I mean, in Brooklyn, New York, you know, we'll go walk to the masjid, like we'll go walk to the older brothers, boys, the movie Moon's place, and like, you know, watch TV, watch G.I. Joe and Sesame Street and Addison and everything. You know, and then eventually we went from, you know, I remember weddings and all this stuff in upstate New York. I mean, in Brooklyn, the playgrounds and stuff like that. And then we ended up moving to upstate New York. You know, upstate was a little bit different. They had, you know, wilderness, trees, lakes, hills, mountains.
Hey, Tariq.
Yeah.
Do me a favor. Jump back out and jump back in. Let's see if that helps.
All
All right. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say that you listen to the Dagger Squad. This is a special edition today on Tuesday night. We have people who have experience with the man that's known to the world as Dr. York. And you know what? Since I was gonna show a picture real quickly. I know Chuck, you wanted me to show an article or something, right? Well, anyway, from on the YouTube side, I'm not getting from anyone, whoever talks to the show. All right, cool. All right. So let me ask Sister Addison, do you want to come back in? Because I did mute your mic. So if you want to come in, you got to unmute your mic. And if you want to say some more words, I mean, it's up to you. It's free reign. It's totally up to you. And if you want to tell some more of your story, and I mean, it's fine. If you don't, I mean, I'm always here. The platform is always here for you if you want to, talk or anything. But just unmute your mic when you're ready to talk. Brother Farooq, we never got to you, but growing up in the community, brother, if you want to unmute your mic, I see you in the back chat, but you're here on the panel. Do you want to add anything from what you've heard so far?
Yeah, I can add on. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I can add on, collaborate a lot of what Donnie is saying about idolizing York. The community itself was sort of set up that way. Some people have asked, where were the men at? Well, the men in the community were really kept busy. I made sure, and other brothers made sure, that the men were kept busy. And you had to bring in that money, or you had to face the consequences, plain and simple. And so in the communities that I set up, or I helped set up here in the South and whatnot, the brother from Miami, I think his name is Mother Nature or something like that. He was in Miami. I'm pretty sure he's familiar with Ibrahim, with can't think of the other brother's name, but
Kedar was running it at the time I was there, brother Kedar from DC.
Yeah,
Kedar?
Yeah, that's when I was there.
Okay, what year was that?
I was there in 90 and 91 because that's when they had first started to build it. Because actually, how I got there, I'm originally from Springfield Gardens in New York. I had asked them to come down here because my mother was sick, so they were just building the community at the time. So he allowed me to come down here to help with that, so I could be close to my mother at the time, who was real ill. So they started building the Miami community around 89, 90. I got here when they were like 6 months into it, and they were doing Tampa at the time. But Kedar was the one that was, Kedar and Hajar were the ones that were there. They're from DC.
Yeah. And if you're familiar with it, around that same time, there were brothers coming from Tampa that were, and they had to make money any kind of way. I mean, they were selling clothes at every event. The men were kept busy.
Hey, Farooq, hold on one second, brother. Sister Addison, just press your button to unmute your mic, because I muted you earlier. And just, I don't know where, because you have a laptop. If you look at the top of the screen, you're going to see a plus sign. You're going to see a microphone sign and a TV sign. The microphone sign is what you need to press on, and that will unmute your mic. All right, so we can't hear you right now because you're muted.
Yeah, she probably had to. If she moves her cursor around, she muted her camera now. But if she move her cursor around, that's what those icons will show up. And it looked like she pushed one of them, which was the camera mute.
camera button.
Just undo what you just did. Yeah, now do the other one to the left of it. You should see a icon to the left of the one you just pushed, and it should be the mic. There you go. There you go.
All right, sister, you were talking. You wanted to add something on. Go ahead, sister. Speak your mind. The floor is yours.
I'm not sure how long this conversation is going to go on, but it's just really important for me to express the psychological impact that this whole experience has on people. I have a son by Dr. York or whatever name he is. My sister has kids by him as well. As a family, we have never had the conversation about our kids being cousins. We've never had that conversation. And we may have been the first sister or sibling group that had kids by him, but we were not the last. And when I think about the way he constantly manipulated his followers for them to think that whatever he did was okay, it's maddening. And when he first started, I don't know when he first started having eyes for me. I don't know. But all I know is I remember when he first was interested in me, all of a sudden, all of his speeches, his lessons, everything had to do with Jacob and Leah and Rachel. And I don't know how much you guys are versed in the Bible, but if you know anything about Jacob and Leah and Rachel, Jacob basically married one sister so he could have the other. Whether that story means anything to you or not, maybe it's just a fairy tale. But the fact that he knew how to inject that idea in people's minds, so when I popped up and I was one of his wives or concubines or whatever the hell you wanted to call it, it would be normal to people. Do you see how premeditated, how deep that shit is? You want everybody to see that this is normal, even though for years and years and years, we knew it was not. That's not something we did. That's not the way we lived our lives. So all of a sudden, you have him spewing this story, and he's spinning the story about Jacob and Leah and Rachel every which way he can. And then 3 months later, I pop up pregnant.
Damn.
Say to that. Nobody's going to question that. Nobody's going to say, oh, well, isn't she Katiba's little sister? No. It doesn't matter. He does and he did whatever he wanted to do. And then you have Ummis that raised us, that raised me, looking at me down their noses like I did something wrong. Like, how the fuck did she get that way? How the hell do you think I got that way? The only man that's in my proximity, the names I was called, the looks.
So hold on. Let's stop for a second. So while you're pregnant, these sisters are looking down and you're like, how the hell you got pregnant? And the only man you slept with was this pervert Dr. York. Pretty much what he was looking down at.
Yes, that's my point. You have women that knew. And honestly, I may sound bitter right now, but honestly, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. That's one of my biggest problems with this whole situation. These women knew what was happening. When he was having sex with 13, 14, and 15 years old. They knew. They knew. All of a sudden, I pop up pregnant and I'm fast. Oh, she was always fast. Okay, well, guess what? The boys that you say I was being fast with, guess what? None of them knocked me up. None of them got me pregnant. But I was a fast ass. The things that I heard these Ummis say about us, how fast we were. We seduced him. That shit hurts me to my heart right now. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you something. And I can't stay long, y'all. I can't. And I overheard a conversation between my mother and another Banat's mother, who her mom just found out that she was one of the docs, whatever. I don't even know what the fuck to call it these days. But the consensus of the conversation was, well, At least she ain't out there one of these niggas in the street. Really? That's what you want for us? I take my chances with one of these niggas in the street any day. This is a man that raised us to be pious, trustworthy, beautiful, faithful, mu'minati. Decided, whoa, somewhere in the game, you decided, no, that's not what's gonna happen. I'm not giving them away. I done raised this shit from the beginning. This is mine now. And he took what he wanted and he used and abused a whole generation of kids. The ones he didn't touch sexually, he still messed them up here. Right now, because I can't do this shit. I can't tell y'all this story sober. And that's the fucking truth. I have a son by this man. I've never said anything bad about his dad to him. Ever.
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah.
And that's not even the half of it. That's the thing. That's not even the half of it.
Hey, Donnie, stop. I'm gonna stop you, man. I'm gonna stop you, sis. I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you right
now. All right. Hey, I want to say something to people who be watching this in the archives and they wonder, because I've spent like several years after I left to kind of filled out questions and people, answering questions. I don't do it anymore, but I used to do it. And a lot of times people will wonder, well, if all this stuff was going on, how come nobody said anything? Or where were the brothers at? And where were the other adults at? And this and that. And people have to understand.
They were right there.
Right.
They were right there.
Okay, but people have to understand.
And they didn't want to jeopardize their places in the community. They didn't want to jeopardize where they were, their standing.
Exactly.
And they let this man do whatever the hell he wanted to do.
Yes, and I also want people have to understand that the inside of the culture of the organization, York positioned himself as the center. He called himself El Kupt, which means the axis. He was the central hub of all eyes. He actually has a poster that is supposed to be a tribute to Jesus. It says, "All eyes shall see and know him." And so he created the persona of being the major character in every single school of thought that he called, whether it was Ansarullah. He became a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. Therefore, he was a direct descendant of Ibrahim or Abraham, direct descendant of Adam and Eve. He has a book where he traces his genealogy all the way back to Adam and Eve, if y'all could believe that. He also became the angel Michael. He became the last writer of the Old Testament, Malachi. He became even in the when he started teaching about Sumer and Mesopotamia, he became Murdoch, who was the
How is that relevant? How is that even relevant? Like,
well, the reason why it's relevant is because the point is that he made himself the icon of everybody's attention, and everybody wanted to be like him.
There were several adults around him. There were people around him that knew what he was doing. They saw what he was doing, and nobody said no. We raised these kids. These are our babies. Nobody said that.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
I don't care what posters he made, who he said he was related to. Nobody said this is not going to happen on my watch.
Well, I can
people right now that cannot deal happen to them. And you have yet to have grown-ups that stood by and watched this happen and say, "I'm so sorry, we didn't protect you." I don't care where he said he came from. I don't care. People stood by and let him get away with whatever he wanted. He took He smashed. He hurt. Lie.
Hey, let it out, sister. Let it out. Let it out. Let it out.
I can tell you that York, through his so-called schools, it was also a way of purging the flock. So those people that Donnie is upset about who did not say anything, those who did say something or were disenfranchised with York, they left. They left, and they kept their secrets with them. Now, there's also people within the organization who were also complicit and involved in it. Now, I remember making this statement for the first time about 2 years ago, and if I remember correctly, on Chuck's page. At that time, I hadn't seen anyone make that statement, and I didn't want to put anything out there. But I knew for a fact there were others who were complicit and also guilty of crimes, very much like York. So this is a trained behavior that York developed in his followers, cultivated, and at the same time purged. So he had his best, worst people around him.
Farooq, mute your mic a second. I hear you, brother. Niki, come on in.
Well, I was just going to say what the brother Wuja was saying, and just to kind of bridge the gap of what he's saying and what Donnie is saying, is that, and I agree with Donnie, there's a lot of people that we know, because, you know, like when people say, you know, you didn't have to be in the bedroom, you know, stuff was going on. So that's one subject. The thing about him making himself the greatest, he made himself unquestionable. He made himself the all, you know, I'm not Jesus, but I'm going to have you call me everything else besides the word Jesus and worship me like Jesus. But the thing is, I remember us being upstate New York. And when we first, because now he used to have Desert Abba. He wasn't occupying at the time. He used it a couple of years for summer camps and stuff like that. But I was actually one of the teenagers that he took. Like, we used to be the ones that was going to his house, and he took us, didn't tell anybody, and he just took us upstate for a weekend, and then he took us upstate for the summer, and just kept us there. And when he had,
and then Niki
mansion,
remember how he,
so he had a mansion built. He took these two trailers that were next to each other. So at one point, he even broke up when he wanted to bring in more girls. He separated the two houses. So there's 2 trailers that he had a mansion building off. His trailer was right next to it, and he could just literally walk into the other trailer and be in our house. So he had it separated. And I remember being there when he wrote a list, and basically the girls that he was having sex with was in the trailer that was next to his, and he would buy food personally, you know. And for us, you know, it's also manipulation. You know, we're growing up on tofu and no soda and this is that. And he's like, oh, I'm going to get you guys hot chocolate. This is, you know, trying to win us over, different things like that. The other girls were in another house. It was farther away, and they had to get food with everybody else. So they didn't have the special food that we had in our place. So I remember one of the girls who at the time, was maybe 15. This other girl who came in from Philly, she was 14. And he put us in that house, specifically said, because he wanted the access to be able to come into our house whenever he wanted to. And if he was with clothes or without clothes, in pajamas, because he would wear those long white robes with nothing underneath it and hang out all day, that he wouldn't be around some of the girls who might question, because it would be around the girls that he was already doing stuff with. So the psychology in that, like when he would tell us about how he's an angel and he's, you know, like he's sent to certain people to be there when they're born and when they die and collect their souls. And, you know, he has the book of life. And if you know, whoever does right by him, he's putting their name in the book of life. And I remember thinking back, like, how sick was this? This one girl who came in, so she was a little newer than the rest of us. So he got us like these t-shirts to wear as pajamas, because he started, you know, when we were in the community, whether we were outside or inside, our pajamas came to our ankles and to our, you know, our wrists. But then when we started going to Backstreet, he used to tell us, oh, you guys could wear anything. You're just girls. So he would start having us rebel against the sisters who were with us. And we'd be like, well, you know, Molana said we could wear this. So giving us that power, starting that stuff up and starting those fractions. So this girl comes in and he was about to come in and she had a t-shirt on. She was about to run and get clothes because she was like, oh my God, because she was new. She was like 2 weeks and he wasn't doing something as yet with her. So I turned to her and I'm like, why are you getting dressed? He could see through your clothes. You don't need to put clothes on. So I'm telling this other girl who's in, you know, who just moved into the house with us. So that's why when Donnie's like, how is that relevant? And just to bridge the gap of that's part of the manipulation. And every form of religion that he wants to spew and make up, he always makes himself the top, the unquestionable, and people will do anything because it's all about proving your loyalty to him, et cetera, et cetera. So me, I'm a kid myself telling this other kid, oh, he could see through your clothes. You know, you don't have to wear it. And she's like, oh, okay. And then falls in line with everybody else. But that's something that he put the seeds in and planted and had us raised that way. So that's why things like that is relevant in terms of knowing what he would do to make sure he's always in control. And if did say something, there was a lot of people that didn't say something. There are a few people that would try to say something and he would, you know, they got in trouble about it. I remember being one of the first trips to Georgia. I was on one of the it was like he had, it was like 8 of us that came down with us. And there was a lady who, a Korean lady, she was probably in her young 20s, had 2 little kids anyway. She came in, and when she of course became one of his wives. He loved, you know, someone of a different race, nationality. He just scooped them up no matter if they were single or not. So she became aware that there's kids, teenagers that he's sleeping with. You know, she was pretty much new to the community. That was a shocker for her. And I remember we were all in the other room hearing them argue. And we were all like, oh, wow, she's arguing with him. Because she realized, what are they doing in your place? Because we are minors. You know, she thought, oh, I'm just one of his wives. But then when she realized, wait a minute, these Mu'minazis are in his house too, sleeping over, she was upset about it. But then 2 weeks later, after they duked it out and argued about it, whatever have you, she fell into line. So there were some people who did try to say something, but somewhere, somehow, they lost their voice and he just took over. If you want to be around him, you had to conform to whatever he was saying. And he's always pushing about being loyal. You know, he's, you know, his mother, you know, like he didn't need his mother. He didn't need nobody, whatever have you. I remember, I don't know if Donnie, if you remember, but I remember there was a point in Brooklyn, we actually thought his mother was dead because he just, and all of a sudden, oh, my mom was like, oh, she's alive? Because he would talk to her like I guess she didn't want to deal with his stuff anymore. But I guess eventually she fell back in line as well. So there were some people that tried to say something, but, you know, it didn't last.
Hey, let me get my brother Mike in for a second, because I want to ask Mike something too before. Mike, share your feelings of what you wanted to talk about, and I got a question right back at you. Go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that Donnie was saying. You know, the psychological effects of of this does extend on all levels. You know, obviously mainly the victims, but my wife at the time, who pretty much was in it with me from day one, when York got arrested, she didn't handle it well, and then as she started, uncovering stuff about the case and realized the guilt, she basically shredded away down to about 60 pounds, literally. Went into depression, got sick, and she passed away in 2011 because she didn't know how to deal with it. So what Donnie is saying is correct. People don't understand the extent, of the effects this has on you psychologically. And everybody deals with it differently. Some people can take more, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, I was a little built to take more, but I had to watch her basically wilt down, to next to nothing because she got so sick. And even on the autopsy, they put, cause of death undetermined because they couldn't find any specific medical condition wrong with it. But I knew it was depression, You know, she went into a whole bunch of bipolar issues for the same reasons as Donnie's saying, because she did a lot of work for him. Even when we went to Georgia, even though she didn't live on the land, but she was up there a lot. And she did a lot of stuff for him. And that's what he does. He builds himself up to this father figure type of thing. And, you know, he uses all the tactics that you're hearing people talk about, you know, tonight. And you know, people don't understand when somebody builds himself up like that, and then you find out the reality of it. Bottom line is, this is why a lot of people on the outside looking at it, most of the Nuwaupians around now, they're new. They have no fucking clue what went on. This is a whole new cycle of them now that are completely fucking clueless to what's going on, and they recycle the same old tactics they're using on them now. You see it on all the videos. It's comical. But the thing is, everybody deals with it differently. This is the same thing with some of the victims. People say, well, why didn't you say nothing back then? You don't know what fucking is going through people's mind. Everybody deals with it differently. Some deal with it right on the spot. Some it takes years. Some probably there's some that never have fully, you know what I'm saying, confronted it. So, but something that Donnie said that's 100% correct. The psychological aspect of this, it branches out on all levels. Like when Farooq was talking earlier, like when we were in the community, we had squads. If you didn't bring in money or you fell asleep on guard, we had to whoop people's asses literally. And if you didn't participate in the ass beatings, you get your ass beat. That's stuff that we had in brother circles. I mean, there's numerous times where brothers fell asleep on guard. We basically would have to whoop the ass. And if you didn't participate, you got your ass whooped. So it was loyalty tactics like that. And like Donnie said, it doesn't excuse. I sense, like, I know one brother, Matt Team used to keep around him all the time. I know those fuckers were up to fuckery, but we did sense sometimes, but it's not to make an excuse. The bottom line is, she's right. We were more bent on our position and our loyalty to York that sometimes we might have sensed shit, even though we may not have had 100% proof of it, but we might have seen things that didn't look right. And we were more concerned with our position in the community and, you know, because York building himself up as some fucking deity and some alien and shit, and under the illusion he's going to take us to some utopia, either in outer space or Africa. We got caught up in all that shit, and it's not an excuse. So I just want to, like I said, I take full responsibility for that. She's 100% right. There is no justification for it. A lot of us were caught under that psychological bullshit too. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
I got a quick question before Anpu comes in. I got a question for you through the internet. And anybody could answer it, but I want to ask Mike specifically. Does Dr. York have a group in Ghana? And the second question is, how many wives did he have and children does he have? Well, everybody could chime in on the last part, but I just want to know about the Ghana. Is there a group in Ghana?
There's people over there in Ghana, you know, whether some of them are still connected to him. I know Kansu went over there for a little bit. I've stayed disconnected from it. I know there was a lot of fuckery going on with YaYa and Damon Pryor, who calls himself Basul, whatever the fuck he is now. He's running some fake ass embassy. They had a lot of fuckery going on. And I know he even went over there and fathered children, which is a whole nother story. When he was taking people's monies, donations. See, that's what they do. They pretend like they're going to go work on the case. See, bottom line is this. A lot of them, it'll be their worst nightmare, which, I mean, he'll never get out of jail. The only time he's going to get out of jail is when it's his funeral. But bottom line is, these people have been making a living off of this shit for years with him being incarcerated, because they use these tactics of raising donations for lawyers and attorneys. And I can tell you at the time, from 2007 to 2009, when they were running that Ghana scam and the fake certificate, and basically they just applied to buy land there. They were given the approval to try to cultivate land, but they made it look like he was being received. See, this is what they do. They come up with these schemes, but then they present it to you in an entire different way. But I know there were side businesses started there. I know his sister YaYa, Damon Pryor, all of them were in cahoots together as far as funneling money. And I know for a fact he was over there, Damon Pryor, fathering children. Whether York got children over there, I can't confirm that. Somebody else might be able to chime in on that. But there's so much fuckery going on. I mean, we could be here all night talking about it. But that's what I know.
Chuck or Anpu or anybody. I'm gonna get to Tariq next. If his signal is okay. But how many children does this guy have and wives? How many do we have on record?
Well, he has over 100 children, for sure.
Okay.
Well over 100 children, for sure. Matter of fact, if you go on Facebook, you can see some of his children will put up collages of all their siblings, you know, all the brothers and sisters and things like that. Even on any given picture, you can easily count 60, 65, 70. But he has well over 100 children. I'm not sure about by how many different women, but during the case, it came up and it was said that he had 77, because that was one of the lists that was produced. Because at one point, the sisters in the office, sisters are close to him, they created a log. He had so many children that they had to start logging and keeping track of it, to keep track of the birthdays and who was cousin, who was brother, uncle. And he had some children that are brothers and uncles of each other at the same time. Like he has a son by a sister, and that same sister has a son by his son, by York's son. So, you know, that's kind of like a weird situation right there. But yeah, to answer your question, well of 100.
1 second, I forgot to say my condolences to the brother Mike. I don't know when you lost your wife, and I'm just hoping you're doing better, and I wish you the best, man. And let me give my Dr. YaYa, she's in the chat. I'm gonna give her website out. If you guys need counseling, I would suggest you guys contact her. This is her website, YaYaPhD.com. That's YaYaPhD.com. That's her website. Check her out. If you need any form of counseling, she's there. I'm just giving you guys that option. I don't know who has ever offered help. I feel like I need counseling after listening to this. This is some rare shit, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, I want to say, Mike, I knew your wife as well. My condolences. I had no idea. I didn't even know until you just said it. So my condolences for that. And you know, I can't imagine how that is. But what I want to just go back a little bit, just to kind of finish what I was saying about the relevancy of the psychological programming that takes place within the organization, because a lot of people are, you know, they wonder about how come nobody said anything, and how come where the brothers at, where the sisters at, where the adults at, and etc. And a lot was already said, but people don't understand the power of belief. And when you come out of these different belief systems and you enter into another one, that's held over your head, and it's very, very, very powerful. So until people untangle the psychological web, they'll never get past it. Even as people involved, like Niki, Tariq, Donnie, and others, if the psychological part is not carefully unwoven, you know, it's always going to be some kind of issue that comes up and manifests in some form of some area of life. And this is what psychologists will tell you. And I'm sure, because, you know, we talk to psychologists on behalf of some of the others, you know, and they say pretty much the same thing. There has to be an untangling of a lot of different things. So it's very, very complex. York had people believing that, first of all, the mission was about raising 144,000. And when that seemed to fail, the 144,000 was supposed to be raised, and then they were supposed to give birth to the messiahs, or the Messiah, and things like that. Then he would play a psychological game of not quite being Jesus, but every single thing around him and about him mimicked Jesus, from the name Yahshua Bar El Hadi, Isa El Hadi El Mahdi, to Yasser Rabboni, to his father being David. His biological father's name is David. His mother's biological name is Mary. So you have David, who is the King David. Remember Jesus being of the seed of David, or of the throne of David, and then Jesus' mother being Mary, and so on and so forth. And then Angel Gabriel coming to Mary, and then all of a sudden she's with child. The same story can apply to him, and was applied to him, all except for his name being called Jesus in English. But Isa is the same name in Arabic, and Yahshua is the same name in Hebrew. So it was all there. So it's a lot of different things. And like I said about the other different characters, he became Jehuti in Kemet, Atum Ray in Kemet, Amanubi Rakata when he was going through that different school. So at every school, he would put himself as the center, as the highest official in whatever school, and had a direct link. In fact, when he was Murdoch, he said that he piloted this spaceship called Nibiru himself. Murdoch. He piloted the spaceship that crashed into the earth and caused this cataclysm to form the moon and all this other stuff. And people believed it. So look, in hindsight, it's easy to talk about it. It's easy to pass blame. But in real time, when you're right there in the midst, and plus being busy 24/7, the sisters was just as busy as the brothers. There was a lot of competition. I'm sure Niki could speak on this. There was a lot of competition and jealousy that was created for the sisters to always stay on point and work hard to get in his favor, because you were always kept low, and any little thing would seem so big. Any little thing, like if you got a Subway sandwich, if you got treated to a pizza, it was like, wow, like for real, I get a pizza. Oh my God. You know, to a normal person, it's like, man, Domino's down the street. But trust me, in that type of environment, all those little things that is so petty to us now, it was real big, especially to the young mind and the adults. You know, so people got to keep that in mind. That's all I wanted to say. It doesn't excuse anything. Matter of fact, hold up real quick. Kathy Johnson was actually convicted for witnessing a crime being committed and not reporting it. There's a legal fancy term for it. It's called mispression of an offense of a crime. She didn't report it, and that's one of the things that she was convicted of, and she served time for it. And right now she's still on probation, the whole nine. And shout out to Kathy Johnson. But I'm saying that there were people who were you know, did go through legal things for that very reason. So I just want to put all that out there.
Let me get Tariq. I don't know if your signal is good, brother. You want to try it? You could try it, because I wanted to give your angle a little bit a shine. But I also want Chuck to go into something that YaYa just brother Anpu just said about the his teachings and trying to glorify himself. But he also made a teaching like Jesus didn't exist, and then I heard in 2000 he flipped, and all of a sudden now Jesus is real. And you know, Chuck, can you just take a minute or two to talk about that?
Yeah. Go ahead. Let Tariq do that, and I'm gonna pull something up real quick.
Go ahead, Tariq. Go ahead, Tariq.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Man, Tariq, right, I don't know what kind of service you have.
You ain't no millionaire, bro. I tell you that. You have proven to us you were not paid off just by your phone. I'm telling you that right now.
Well, yeah, I'm supposed to pay my bill today, so that's probably what's going on.
You sound good now. You're talking about paying your bill. You sound good. You got your sister laughing at you. Look at that, man. I have to put it
it is what it is.
Go back to the videotape. She's laughing at you and your phone, just to let you know. But go ahead, brother.
All right,
it's not a laughing matter right now. But
yes.
I really, what age did he start with you? And as a teenager, somebody asked it earlier, as a teenager, how did you cope with what he did with you while you were becoming a teenager, realizing what he's doing to you, and how did it affect you growing up?
All right, so first, you know, I want to send my condolences to Brother Mike, and then also I want to point out the significance of actually why I speak out in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Because of this particular situation that happened with him, because people really are, so involved in this that it affects them. You know what I'm saying? And people got to get that and understand that. You know what I'm saying? And when they don't have the truth, you know what I'm saying? That's why it's so important. You know what I'm saying? And because it's real people that really deal with it, and those that are not given the truth and is misled, they, you know what I'm saying, it's affect them. You know what I'm saying? So when people say whether you're coming out now or then, it's we're coming out with the truth. You know what I'm saying? Because and this is realism, and put a real situation to it, because he knows exactly what it is, and he know how he sees it, and I feel for him, because I know, what I'm saying, I know what really happened. All right, so with that said, when I was trying to say earlier, when I was in Brooklyn, as far as moving in a week before I turned one of the first times I really remember my mother, because we were separated. That's what I was trying to say. We ate together, we slept together,
and all this stuff. So we were separated, you know, but my mom would come and visit or whatever the case. But one of the first times I really remember her is we was playing with some toys and whatever. We was sliding it across the floor, some toy cars. We was sliding toy cars across the floor, and, you know, we would run back and get it. And then it was hardwood and I had socks on. So I slid and I hit the dresser and I cut right under my eye. And so I needed, you know, medical treatment. So I remember my mother coming with a hot towel and help. And that's one of my first memories of, you know, of my mother, you know. And then upstate New York, you know, there's, you know, a different environment. There's trees, it's not the city no more, you know. This is when I realized, like, I'm one of Malachi York's son, you know, because I'm growing up into this, you know. So, you know, like, I start to understand that. And then around my birthday, when I turned 7, you know, he took me out. We went and got some gifts and all this stuff. I came back. We had a party, you know, and then later on that night, you know, he had one of the teenagers take me to the trailer, one of the teenagers. Take me to a trailer that, you know, that he had, you know, occupied. And when I came inside, there was a cartoon porno on. You know, I just turned 7 or around that age. You know, and then, so there's a cartoon porno on, and then he's inside the trailer. She brings me in the trailer. And then, you know, as this is on, like, you know, I'm kind of looking at it, it's right, like, the direction that I come in is on the TV. And then so she takes my pants down and starts to, you know, touch me and fondle me and all that.
Hold on,
then,
Tariq. Who takes your pants down? Who's the person that did that?
So there was a woman that was she's actually a part of the case. You know, I just you know, because the girls that the people that he was messing around with, he would send them to bring other people in, like in the circle, like, you know, there would be the ones, if someone had to bring somebody to the place, it would be somebody involved in it, you know. So instead of him going and grabbing you and bringing you there, he'll send somebody to get you. So, you know, my first, you know, the first time it happened to me, all I know is that I was going over to see him or whatever the case. It was still, you know, celebrating my birthday or whatever the case. So I was still like, I'm like, oh, you know, I'm spending time with my dad, you know, for lack of a better word. And then, you know, so we get there, and then it's a cartoon. She brings me over there. It's one of the, she was one of the women that was actually arrested as well, a part of the case. You know, so she brings me there, and there's a cartoon porno on. So she starts taking my pants down. She starts touching me and fondling me. And then in the corner of my eye, I look and I see that he's taking his clothes off and stuff. You know? So then, you know, I remember him touching me and whatever the case might be. And then, so that's when it first started, when I was 7 years old. You know, and then we moved down, and, you know, other things happened upstate New York. But then we further moved down to Georgia, and it still continued on up until I left in 2001. You know, so from 7 to 14, when I left, a 7-year period is when it, you know, when it was going up, when it would happen with me.
Let me ask you a question, Tariq. Are you currently, do you have children?
I don't have any
I mean, biologically.
yeah, I got nieces, nephews.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your and I have to ask you this because I know people are thinking it. What's your situation as far as a relationship? Are you engaged? What's going on with your life personally?
All right, yeah, and I don't have the video on because I think it might make a difference with the audio. So, but actually, I'm married.
Okay. Oh, you're married. Okay.
I have a stepdaughter. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, but you know, with that, you know, as far as the discussion that we're talking about now and how it relates to my marriage, I mean, it's there. It's there. You know.
Have you talked to your wife about it? Have you talked to her about it extensively, or have you shared with her all that you shared in public?
I mean, you know, it just it's unique to me and her that I mean I could explain it and everything like that, but it just kind of would just it's we haven't like had a full sit down 2-3 hour 4 hour discussion, but she's aware of it, she knows about it, like she knows I've been like out here speaking about it, and it's affected our relationship in a way, because it's always going to be there, and whether it's good or bad, what I'm saying, it's gonna affect it, what I'm saying, and things that I may not even correlate.
Tariq, let me tell you something. You are more man than a lot of men out there, and I'm gonna tell you why.
That's right.
A lot of men would not come out. I'm Jamaican, and I'm gonna tell you right now, if a man in Jamaica was abused, they would never come out and say it. They wouldn't come out and say it. And for you to come out and say it, it says a lot about you as a person and your character. It says the type of individual you are. Because a lot of folks say, oh, he's making it up. Who makes shit like that up? Who makes that up? Which human would do that? You know what I'm saying? And I have to ask you, of course, are you a millionaire? And I ask you the question jokingly, but I have to ask you because, of course, whoever is listening will be like, oh, he's rich. He got paid off by the feds. So just tell the people if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, well, I have money to pay my phone bill, but it's due today, So if I don't get to the store by 12 o'clock tomorrow, it's gonna be cut off. But I'll have it, I had the money to pay for it. It's closed right now, So like, no, I'm not a millionaire.
Okay.
And
Niki, do you want to say that on the air? Or you just type? Do you want to say it?
Say what?
Up to you. You can
say what?
I can say it, man. She wanted to say something regarding.
Well, you were asking about Tariq and his relationships, and I would say that knowing many of the victims and ones who never even testified, I would say that's one, including myself, that's one of the disheartening things, like we all have had relationship problems. I've known many of the girls who have been victims of rape. I know one girl, she was raped twice, just being in a situation where she felt she didn't want to be there, but she didn't have the willpower to get up and say no. For a long time, I personally avoided relationships because I kind of felt like, well, I'm just so used to doing what I'm told. I don't want to be with someone. And then I fall back into this thing of just doing what I'm told and what I want. Me personally, I didn't know, even though stuff was happening to me since I was 13, I knew nothing about my body when I was 25. I didn't even know women supposed to have an orgasm, and even when I first left, stayed with one of the Abus where some of his kids were in the community. He had a house that he had some of like the teenagers and people in like their early 20s. He basically had a house where people who didn't have anywhere to go would stay. So because I was close with some of his kids, I didn't have anywhere to go when I left because I was raised there, I just knew I wanted to get out, I had asked one of his kids, who was a friend of mine, and she asked her dad if I could stay there. But looking back, one of the disheartening things for me to think about is just I lived in a constant fear of, oh my gosh, she's going to try to sleep with me. And so that's a really uncomfortable feeling, living, this man who doesn't know me, I just know quite a few of his kids. He let me in his house to stay there. People were trying to get jobs and get on their feet and go to school, whatever have you. I stayed with him for a little while until when I actually found my real dad and I moved out and everything like that. But for the longest, when I was there, I was just so nervous because I was just, like this mode of nobody's going to do anything unless you're doing something to them or for them. That's where I was raised by their master teacher, my so-called father, that, so I just lived in that constant fear. And then I remember one time he calling me into the room because he had to ask me a question. I don't even remember the question, but my internal was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. So, and people don't consider that. You know, I think the last time we were on a discussion on another channel and someone asked about our well-being, and this is shocking to me after all these conversations. This is actually the second time that people have even questioned or even cared to know, you know, what's, you know, how people are internally. You know, I've lived with suicidal thoughts since I was a teenager. There's many people who lived, you know, with all types of things going on, and you don't even know the name of it because you're not used to knowing about mental illness or depression or any of those things. So growing up in that environment, or even some of the girls, you know, some of the situations they're in, and, you know, it's just like, wow, yeah, there's many girls that will be in that situation, but I feel like they're more prone to that type of situation because of how we were raised. And it's sad, and nobody thinks of those things. They're just so bent on protecting him and making him innocent that they're not even considering what many of us still go through and still impact it, you know, relationship, your business, you know, just your whole life in general.
Let me ask you a quick question, right? Since you're on, your mic is open. Somebody said in the audience that we should blame the parents as much as we blame York. And I want to ask you this honestly. With him separating the children from the females and the males, do you think the parents, because they joined the cult, they're guilty, or they weren't in any control to see that the abuse was happening? What was your relationship like with your actual parents? My
dad was not in the community. My mom, I mean, her like everybody else. We in Brooklyn at time, we saw our parents maybe a couple of hours for tifu time, which is like Arabic for children time. And when my mom became one of his wives, I didn't even see, you know, that was less, you know, that was taken away because the wives couldn't just leave the office.
Hold on a second. Your mom was one of his wives?
Yeah.
What the hell is going? Hold on a second here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people
don't realize what's going on here.
Most people don't, Garfield, and that's how he was able to get away with this stuff. Nobody knew. Nobody looked into it. So all these fools that are talking about free Dr. York, they don't have a clue about what went on. They don't know. They don't talk to the victims. Hell, I was the one that reached out to them at least to try to find out what their side was saying. And these idiots are running around glorifying them. They even hired a public relations firm to try to change his public image. That's what they're trying to get this devil out so he can be at ease and molest more children. I mean,
like you said, it's just basically for the image. They don't really care anything about us because it's interesting, from Al Sharpton to his current lawyer, all these things. Not that I'm saying I'm trying to have a conversation with them, because they're already stating where they're at. But it's interesting to me, all these people and all these attempts to make him innocent, and not one would reach out to anybody who actually testified or talked about it, or anybody who's actually speaking the truth. They don't want to talk to us because they don't want that on their mind, that guilt conscious on their mind. No one in their right mind is going to be able to talk to any of us and walk away with he's innocent. Yeah, my mom was one of his wives. There's a lot.
Did your mom have children also by him?
Too.
Yeah. Yo, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like you know, I'm not gonna give my sister's age away, but like me and her, we have a 10-year difference, you know, so like my mom, it was one of his wives and have 2 children by him. So like when I was growing up thinking that he's my dad, you know, by the time he had children with her, it made it more believable, like as I'm growing up. So like for me, I didn't have a reason to question, like, you know, was he my real dad or not? You know what I'm saying? So like,
how did you cope with it as a teenager, though? After what he did to you, how did you cope with that?
Yeah, well, see, I left basically as a teenager. You know, like actually, when I was living on the land, I had turned a teenager. You know, and 13 and 14, and at that time, you know, once you're old enough, like you move to the barn. You know, so I moved in the barn with the men, basically. you know, and you know,
Did you tell anybody what York was doing to you?
nah, I didn't tell nobody. I didn't tell nobody.
Was there a reason why, or just because you felt if you did that something would go wrong, or?
Well, okay, well, not telling nobody and talking about it, let's just say it's two different things. So so I could say that I've talked about it, but now you would have to put in context that there was people that it was going on with that you would identify with that you know that is going on with. So if you and somebody else know that you going through the same things, you can talk about it. But as far as like telling somebody, you can't tell somebody that already know what's going down, you know? So like that was kind of also a part of it. It was that after, let's call it with the grooming, once you're groomed, the interactions is within the inner circle, like, it's a conversation rather than, it's like, and the conversation may not even be good. Like I remember towards the end of me leaving, most of the people my age was like, I'm tired of this place. I want to leave. I'm not. Everybody was miserable, and everybody was talking about leaving. All of us, like whether we admit it or not, and then the ones who won't admit it are Nuwaupian die hard right now. But everybody know like that. People were saying, I've heard "fuck Malachi York" on the land from us. Like we used to say that amongst each other, but like we couldn't really make no moves because we were in the middle of the country with no assets, no family, so to speak, no connection to the world. Like we couldn't make no moves like that. We didn't even know to know what to do. Like, we like the most interesting thing that happened was, I mean, in context, was my sister escaping the land. Like we literally had everybody looking for her up and down the whole land, while only me and a couple of us knew that we planned for her to escape, to get away. Like my sister was saying earlier, like, she was gonna tell my mom she ran away, and we planned to get her out. We had everybody with, even into the night, with candle lights and all that, looking all over for her, like, until they realized that she, they're not gonna find her, and they was asking me like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, I don't know, and so like it's real.
This psychological web is real tight. It's real tight. People have to understand how that operates, how that works, and the age and the impressionability, the gullibility of the people, as children. And like Garfield, you said, you asked a question, how did you cope with it or whatever? But we also have to remember that until you see something else, like if you only see one option, if it's never a multiple choice to you, then you think that's norm. Especially if you're in seclusion. You have to understand how the situation was set up and how everything was assembly line. You had sisters who didn't know what the other sisters were doing. All they knew is that they were in competition for the grace of York, to be in his grace, to get rewards and things like that. He knew what everybody was doing, but everybody else that was doing something didn't know what the next person was doing. And it was always that thing, having things hang over you. And then like between the brothers and the sisters, he would tell even couples that was on the land, he would tell sisters negative things about brothers and brothers negative things about sisters. How the brothers were living in the barn, how the sisters were dirty and doing this and that. They come to work and they smell and all funky and this and that, sit in the office. So it would be a back and forth thing. It was very, very manipulative, like manipulation on steroids. That's how it is. And, he was able to orchestrate and do all of those things because everybody was separate. The children, the younger children, then you had the teenage group, then you had the older sisters. Even the sisters were divided between large groups. You had a house called 103. He used to live what we call down the hill inside of a house. Then he moved into a double wide trailer that was parked right next to 103, and 103 housed the sisters that obviously he was real close to. I know Niki used to be in 103, and so on. So it was easy done, and it was just the way everything was set up. And hindsight, I can say you notice a lot now, but back then in real time, You don't, because one, you don't want to anything for that to be true or to happen because you're in it for the mission. You know, on paper, I'm telling you, on paper, the Nuwaupian organization looks nice, really good on paper. The mission, the race of children, our own language, our own flag, our own land, our own, you know, do for self attitude, you know, all of that is beautiful. Even the buildings, the outside of every building look good, but once you go inside, everything's falling apart. You know.
Let me get Mike in here real quick. Mike, how did the authorities get to know? I mean, I heard some stuff, but from what you have learned, how did they get? Because a lot of people think the government came in, but it was actually somebody on the land. Mike, can you elaborate on that for me?
Well, I mean, what the reports are, there was letters sent to, you know, SEALs. What people got to understand, they always make it look like with all these conspiracy theories, you know, they use the Jacob York thing. People got to understand that a lot of the suspicions, a lot of that contact, the letters that were sent from people that had left the land and had sent letters to SEALs. This was prior to that whole Jacob York shit. So the wind of it got to SEALs, and there was an ongoing investigation, which a lot of people didn't know about. It's not, Jacob York didn't open no door for all this to transpire. They used that shit for a while. That was one of their tactics as a scapegoat, because they wanted to, you know, pin it on him, like, you know, he was the disgruntled son and he was trying to get back at his dad. So from what I know and found out, yes, there was letters that went to SEALs, because there was a lot of the young girls were showing up at these hospitals in the area of Milledgeville, Eatonton, and there was no names going on the birth certificate. So it kind of raised the suspicions, you know, of local authorities. And this is way before that Jacob York shit. This is in the late 90s. So this is what raised the suspicion. I mean, even Brother Anpu will tell you, they had surveillance on the land for a while. I mean, we used to always see them parked in the bushes when we would show up. It's not like sometimes they didn't even hide it. You know what I mean?
Let me just say something to that real quick. Real quick. There was, like, right across the street. We said, you know, we were at the big land. Across the street was this property, and it was filled with trees. You know, you couldn't even see the people's house that was right across the road from us. But apparently the law enforcement, prior to him arresting him, I think several months prior to that, they had made out a deal with this homeowners that was across the street, and they actually started chopping some trees down just so they could have visual surveillance of the land. And when they raided the land, the law enforcement officials knew some of the key words in the language, Nuwaupic. We called it Nuwaupic at the time. Some of the key words that we used to say at the pylon or at the gate. And they could repeat it verbatim, pronounce it very well and everything. So they were watching for a while. In fact, they waited for York to leave before they acted. They made sure they didn't want to act while he was on the land. They waited for him to leave and get all the way in Milledgeville and get settled in Milledgeville at a shopping center before they even act and moved on him and the land simultaneously. So they had surveillance there right across the street. And in fact, during the case, you know, I was privy to all the documents, and they even had a case where somebody almost spoiled their surveillance. They almost, you know, got caught on their surveillance. So all that was in the paperwork as well. So they were definitely watching for a while.
Hey, let me say this to the guy in the chat, Joseph Coleman. Everything that York taught, I don't think there's anything in his teachings that is true. And I'll debate anybody on that any day of the week. I don't even need Chuck on that. There's nothing in Dr. York teachings that is true.
Yeah.
Nothing. I will say that on the record. And the reason why I say that, and I don't even have a grasp of it, because his premise is just totally incorrect. From the jump, if you go back to the holy tablets and everything. Brother, I got so many questions in my inbox, man. I'm trying to remember them. I don't even want to go through my phone.
I wanted to add on to that, because a lot of time people want to go and debate his religion and things like that. But I would say, you know, I would just encourage people, they need to do their own research. I mean, you know, I drew pictures for the books. I laid out the books. I remember him getting a book and telling us to read it and taking those things, and how he had a science for those things. And a lot of the stuff, like, I literally had to condition myself to not go by memory, but to look things up, because being in the publications department, he would take a book and he would just plagiarize it, but he would also just make up shit. People to say, "Oh, I don't want it to contradict something I said," and he would actually.
Niki, stop. Listen, this is very, very important. I want you to rewind, and I want you to say it again, because I've never heard anybody live except for Chuck and Anpu say this. You worked in the publication department. None of these idiots who are defending it ever was there. You talked to York. You heard him make up bullshit. I want you to say it loud. Let me turn up your mic. I gotta turn Nikki's mic up. Turn the mic up, Garfield. Go ahead, sister. Be loud.
No, I just said a lot of the doctrine was made up. It was plagiarized. He would add things in. The Nuwaupic whole language came out of because he was surprised that us kids who were trained in classical Arabic made up our own dialect. So and he didn't understand it because he doesn't even really understand Arabic. So when people go about his religion, they need to themselves and look for the actual books, because he would actually literally say, make sure it doesn't contradict something I said before. He would actually have a team of us there to help concoct the story to make it match. And if he ever got into class and there was sisters who, before he got up and sounded like the master teacher, it was us who was making note cards for him to remember what he would say. And if he said something and he was stooped on a question, he would get mad that the sisters didn't prepare him to answer those questions. So when people talk about the doctrine, I don't even really want to hear it, because it's mostly bullshit. You know, you literally would make up things. He would make up stuff. He would change it tomorrow. He got fascinated by a book and he's like a little kid. Ooh, this looks shiny. All of a sudden we're in a whole nother thing. So people need to just do their own research, you know. In the layout department, the part what I.
Oh, you got messed up. Hey, well, let me say this though. That just answers Joseph Coleman. We throw all the shit out because it's effing made up. Yeah. Nothing you can't. Let me tell you something.
Hold on.
I'll put some money out there, Chuck. You can, if you could prove a whole page of any Malachi York book, we need to give them a prize. One page.
Listen.
One page.
One page.
Wait, this is something that York says at you know, to everybody taught. He says either you're all right or you're not right at all. So once you find mistakes in his book, according to his own philosophy, York is wrong. Again, he says you are all right or you're not right at all. So York is not right at all. Period.
There it is.
Yeah.
If I could say something real quick, if you look at from day one, I don't care, you could call it schools, whatever the hell you want to call it. There was always the same concept in every school. When we were Ansars, the holy book was the Quran. You had the loyal disciples, and he was the Messiah figure, whether it was Al-Kibder, Melchizedek. Then same thing in Judaism. He was Rabboni Yeshua / Malachi Zadok. We were into the Torah for a short period of time. We were the loyal. There was the congregation, a scripture, and a divine savior. Then after that, it was the Anunnaki. He was Marduk. Holy Tablets was the new Bible. We were the loyal congregation. Then after that, it was the Black Book. He's the Atum Re. We're the loyal congregation. And now they have their new Bible called the Tariq. Same shit. Now he's Yanun. So if you look at his methodology, he doesn't really change shit he's doing. He just changes the costume. He just changes the title. But it's still, I'm the divine savior figure. I am your salvation. I'm the only one that can guide you to wherever the fuck he's trying to take you. You must follow this book and all the rules in it and be loyal. It's the same system when you look at it from day one to the present day. He just recycles it. He puts on a costume to catch people's. He's good with theatrics, as you can see. He knows how to put on, the costumes and captivate your attention. And all that's done, the theatrics, that's all done for an intentional reason. Last thing I want to add real quick before I forget, the Jesus thing that you had mentioned earlier. I just wanted to throw that in there before I forgot. But when he came up with that in 2000, we had talked about that a few nights ago. When we first formed the Blue House, the Masonic Lodge, there was a group of us brothers going to his house in Athens. We were going every Sunday, and we would have these meetings about the lodge. Well, when that happened, this is how he sold it to us. And I always bring this up to Nuwaupians because regardless, you can say schools, this and that. How can a man who taught all that shit about Africa and Egypt all of a sudden be saved by Jesus? That shit don't make any goddamn sense. And the sad thing was at the time, that's what really raised my suspicion. But when you're locked in that mentality, for some reason, I still stayed. You understand? I can't really give you a reason why I did at the time. I know now why, but at the time, I couldn't give you a reason why. But he sold it to us that he had a near-death experience. He had to be brought back to life. But when he was in this state of death, when he was taken away, he saw Yeshua, and Yeshua told him that everything he was doing was wrong. Stop teaching that stuff you're teaching. You need to get back in line with the blood of Christ, etc. And I'm sitting there like baffled the fuck out. Like, this is not, what we were about. This is something you taught for years, that this Jesus character, was fictitious when we left that school of religion. This is how he plays the psychological mind games. Now you're trying to sell to us you're saved by the blood of Jesus. And shortly after that meeting, I think it was the following Saturday inside the temple up on the land in Eatonton, he did a class. You could actually, it's on audio on one of the Egyptian Church of Christ CDs. I can't remember the name of it. The brother had played it the other night. The following Saturday, he did a class on it, trying to sell it to the members. And literally, and Brother Anpu was actually there. He could tell you, when he started testifying, people in the damn audience started testifying, getting emotional, and started crying. It was the most bizarre thing to me, because that's not what I had come into the mission for. I came into the mission to leave all that shit, but I felt like we were back in church and shit. And you bring this up to Nuwaupians today, and you tell them, look, regardless of school, how do you justify that? So I just want to throw that in there before I forgot. But he would just do bizarre shit like that. And it was the same thing. Like when we lived in the community, I got kicked out of the community twice, once in Philadelphia and once in Miami. Here's the tactic they used to use. And now the second time I got kicked out, my first son was maybe a month and a half old. This is what they would tell you. You have to leave, but your wife could stay. He used to do that shit all the time. You have to go. Your wife could stay. That was another tactic they used to get at the females. That did not sit well with me. But it happened to me twice. They kicked me out, but they told me that my wife could stay. I mean, she was smart enough not to stay, but I just want to throw those three things in there before I forgot.
Great point. Hey, Garfield.
Yes, sir.
Let me put this. I want to make something about this school thing, because a lot of these New Jack Nuwaupians are popping up and they're saying whenever we point out certain things in York's theology that's been proven wrong or it gets debunked, they say, well, that was according to the school at that time. That was that school. But even when this story about the schools was coming out, any Ansar that knows this whole school thing, as they say, know that when York talked about schools, he always referred to school as hell. Even Habiba said at the trials, he said he was saying that school was Sheol, which in Hebrew meant hell, an evil place. So he took us out of school, Nicole, Safia, Sakina, Chandra, and Ebony. York did that purposely. So all this stuff about being schools, maybe it's a psychological thing he had in mind when he was saying, I'm putting y'all through these different schools. But in his mind, because I put it on the website and on my YouTube channel where York is saying it himself, that I put you through, he said, people who want to live up on this mountain, this is what he's saying, people want to live up on this mountain, you have to live by certain rules. And some of them wanted to go to shul. I said, well, go ahead, go back down into the cities and go back down to shul. He didn't even accept the idea of people being better educated, because it would go in conflict to his organization, because they would start seeing things from a more critical point, because instead of just being blind followers. York was dropped out of school in the 9th grade. He was not an alert person. He played a very well game of giving the illusion that he was a highly educated person, even lying and saying that he received a doctorate and his bachelor's from the University of Cairo in Egypt, and that the University of Khartoum, where he's supposed to have studied. But none of this stuff is backed up. None of it's supported. Even if you look at the documents that he just recently put up on his criminal history, there's nothing. When the American University in Egypt was contacted, they couldn't find any information on this guy. So he's been a habitual liar from the day he came into this whole thing. Matter of fact, his whole Islamic leanings came after he was released from prison back in the 1960s. So it's all a big lie. The whole organization is a lie cult. It's a religious. It was a sex cult from those who had to deal directly with him within his inner circle. And even with this whole thing with brother Mike was saying about he having to die, he died and he came back, and then Jesus came to him, blah, blah, blah. Same thing he said about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Came to him in a vision and told him what you were saying wasn't true. He's saying the same thing. You can see the pattern of his deception. So on the audio where he released called You Want to Question Me and I Taught You, he says the following: you don't decide to get saved. Dr. Malachi Z. York didn't decide to become a Christian or to get saved. I was quite content in Egyptology. I knew what I was talking about. But when God chooses you and don't care where you're at, I don't care what you're doing. If God chooses you and something hits you like bam, then you say to yourself, Jesus is real. If you understand what I'm saying and the person standing next to you thinks this is some kind of a joke, you better get away from them. I'm talking about the power of God transforming your life. You may not believe it. You may not want to believe it, because I would have told you last year, if I would have told you last year that I would be saying this, then I would say you're full of crap. But when it got down to the reality of it all, everybody here is going to stand at the door of death. I want to ask you a simple question. What do you do, or what would it lose or gain if you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal savior? This is his words. So how could he have said back in 1990, upstate at the so-called 19 classes, which I was a part of, where he says that when you get back down to the cities, you tell the people it's no longer about religion. It's about right knowledge. It's all about right knowledge. And the Nuwaupu is something that's down the road that we'll talk more on. And then in 2002, just before he gets arrested, he gives this declaration in a class. And it was about 3 different classes where he starts to really go into this. So how can he say that, well, I was comfortable in Egyptology and talking about Sumer and all this other stuff, but that was for people who wanted to hear that, who were devils. But when I start talking about the glory of Jesus Christ, they don't want to hear it. So now this is something that the Nuwaupians need to confront, because they've been ducking it and dodging it, and they don't seem to want to acknowledge the reality of this stuff because they have some type of mental disorder. And this is that problem that they're having, because there's such a desperate need for a Messiah. Now, case in point, York said, and this is what Nuwaupians love to chant. They'll chant, and I say chant purposely. They'll say, I came giving you what you want, so you'll learn to think on the level of what I really have to give. Now, this is what they say to justify the deceptions. That's part of the psychosis. So when you take their so-called holy book, the Holy Tablets, chapter 19, tablet 6, verse 184 through 194, York said, quote, it was all necessary for the preparation of what I am teaching you. Now, for the overstanding acceptance, I had to take you through several schools of learning before I could get you to this point, to get all the stories and names correct in your head. You are Nuwaupians. You are originally from Nubia. You have your own dress and culture. Now I have given you everything. You need to go to the next level. I came giving you what you wanted, Islam, so you would want to learn what I really have to give now. You have learned what I have to give. Then he pops up in 2000 with the book, the Millennium Book, which was supposed to be things to look for in the this new millennium. He says, quote, here it is. I have said it all. What more can I say? All those that opened their door to me, I took under my wing and gave you all I have to give. So all this nonsense about where that was, he's teaching us now what he really had to give is a lie. These people are delusional, and they're generally stupid because they cannot see, and they purposely ignore, which is, he said, ignorance is to ignore. They purposely duck and dodge from these points that people put to them because they don't want to accept this reality. And that shows the people who are throwing the questions out to Nuwaupians that these people are sick. Then you got girls. I'm seeing people online or who have on the YouTube channel where they'll question me on various things that I post. Then they'll say, these are the same people. These people who are defending York now are the same people who would be potential victims of York. And those men who defend him will be potential defenders who will remain silent while the abuse is taking place. York knew that. That's why he put fillers out to find out who was going to be loyal to him. So when you start beating up on people because they didn't turn in enough money, those are people who are the potential soldiers who defend him. You look at, just go back and look at the people who defended York, the people that were around him. And those, remember back in the day, you could see Brother Wali and Suleiman, all of these guys that were York's right-hand men. At some point, they walked away, but nobody questioned what happened to Wali. What happened to Suleiman? Why are these main Yorkers? You didn't see York without them. And that says a lot. Because remember, Wali's children were molested. But that doesn't mean that Wali and other people weren't involved in some things too. Put it out there where it is. Because if you're going to put it out there, put it all out there.
Yeah, you're 100% right about that, Chuck. You're 100% right. And the thing you were touching on about the schools and whatnot, I have said to Nuwaupians over and over time again, each one of the schools were false. Nuwaupians cannot get on any stage with any scholar and debate what they believe. You can't. So from the beginning, whether it was Islam, Nubian Hebrews, or whatever, York's Arabic was weak and terrible. And I find later mistakes in his Arabic. And like you were quoting from York's own, even his own scripture, in the Holy Tablets, beginning with chapter 19, York makes this narrative about two Muhammads and his wife and this and that. But that just simply causes more problems than it actually trying to fix, because then you're saying that the children of the Prophet Muhammad doesn't even know their own father. You see, the Nuwaupians have now taken this whole thing from all the schools, sort of remixed it, and now try to put it together. And well, this is where we at right now, and you just can't do it. You can't do it. And the problem with the problems with Nuwaupians now is that they got their hand caught in the cookie jar with the new science, and that's the problem, and that's a big problem. I even have it on the word from the ambassador of Sudan, of the ambassador of Sudan, of the Ansars here in America. York has no connection, never had any connection with the Mahdi or the Ansars from the beginning. So like the other person was saying, from the beginning, this was just simply something York created for his own personal whims. He saw a hustle. York could have did this with atheism. York could have did this with anything. He didn't even need religion. He was already a gangster and involved in criminal activity before he even got involved in any of this, you know. But all this created a mindset for the followers. Because someone asked me earlier, well, who else was complicit in all this? And earlier I couldn't remember a lot of the names, but Mufti Rab comes to mind, Ibrahim, Mishak, Mustafa, Ishmael. I don't know their government names, but these are the names that I know of them by. You know, and they were all complicit. And Khalik, I know Khalik very well. His name is Abdul Khalik, but we call him by Khalik. Now, Khalik, me and him, I was working with him, driving him around, picking up all the money. And this dude right here, you know, he had his own personal fitness and gym and eating steak and whatnot. And I felt really bad just simply being around him. And the way he acted and the way he talked, you could tell this was coming. This was a learned behavior, and it was everywhere. No matter what community, whether it was Tampa, Orlando, Daytona, Miami, and York's made these dry runs in the South just to, like Chuck was saying, just to have his main henchman in charge, make sure everything is okay.
Hey, if I could dispel one quick myth, there's another thing the Nuwaupians will say. You know, oh, everybody's questioning York's doctrine now. He's incarcerated, but when he was out, he answered every and all questions from any and everybody. That's not true. Because bottom line is, if you look at the whole history, York always stayed in his own comfort zone. When it was Ansar's, he didn't teach outside the community. Name one public place where he made himself available to be questioned by anybody. He only taught in his big communities, which were Brooklyn. He went to Philly. He would go to Trinidad, just the big communities. And then when that disbanded, only place he ever taught was on Tamaray. And 90% of the people, or probably more, that would come to those classes were pro-York supporters.
Yes.
And in those classes, and somebody stood up and questioned him, he had a tactic of how he would shut it down. So that's a myth. People got to stop saying, oh, when he was out, he took on any and all comers. He didn't take on nobody.
No comers.
He's
not
still
one.
in his own comfort zone. He's not doing like brothers are doing today in the whole call, just, the so-called conscious community where they're making themselves accessible to anybody. He never did that. Somebody showed me one time where he made himself available to the public. That's another tactic that he used to keep control. So newer members got to stop listening to those bullshit stories. Like when he was out here, they make it sound like he traveled all over the world and went to all these neutral places and was teaching the doctrine. He never left outside of his comfort zone.
Let me say this real quickly. Sister Addison dropped out like probably 45 minutes ago or hour ago. And, she is a wonderful person. I spoke to her months ago, and she seems to be someone who has very good character. And she told me a lot of things. I don't want to repeat what she said to me, but I do want us to send some positive energy her way.
Absolutely.
And, I'm going to reach out to her tomorrow, because this was definitely a trial for her. She's never done something like this before.
Yeah, she had to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna reach out to her tomorrow anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Just keep her in our minds and just wish the best for the sister. I wanted to show this picture. I wanted to share my screen and show this picture to the Nuwaupians that are watching, and I want them to explain to me how is it that this picture, this tradition, 1973, Ted Powell had a song called Nuwaupu, and you ended up being Nuwaupians or Nuwaupians. Ted Powell actually had a connection to Dr. York. And I'm gonna do an article on this, because I had a debate with a brother on Facebook, and he was saying that they were always Nuwaupians from 1970, which is not true.
No.
This was from, I think, 1988, I think they call themselves Nuwaupians, or even later. I don't know when, but I know it wasn't from 1970.
No, Nuwaupians popped up in the 90s.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to show this. A brother wanted me to show one of Chuck's videos. Which one is it again, Robon? You wanted me to play your "Did Malachi Z. York ever give you what you really had to give?"
Oh yeah.
At the end part. Hold on.
Funk Flex got to drop a bomb on that last picture you showed.
Look at this. Look at this. Somebody come and look at this. Look at this.
Rob on it. Is he still on?
Yeah, I'm still on.
Where do you want me to go to?
Nah, you started it from the end, bro. I just ended off of that, man. Crazy, man.
Yeah, this is what I was reading. This is what I was reading earlier. That was him telling those people, go ahead and get back with Christ, because he said on that same audio that he was watching the Word channel, and on the Word channel, a reverend looked in the camera and said, "I'm talking to you, Malachi." And he said he was taken back by that. And then it was at that point that he accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. I recommend anybody that can get that audio and lock it. You want to question me, and I taught you.
Hey, listen. See, you have to remember, York is a spin master, and he always goes in hindsight and puts spins on things. And what happened with the Jesus thing is that after the fact, he came up with the spin and said that, hey, you know why I did that? It's because I'm dropping people. I realized that there were people that were still with me who were still Christians deep down, and that I basically stopped the train and dropped people off where I found them, and so that we can lighten up the load and then move forward. So that was his eventual spin after that.
All right, let me play this for Nuwaupu in the
You really think Jack Nicholson is not the devil? Now we use a capital T. The devil. If you're still under the impression that there is no, the white people is not the devil, and it's in the Quran. I'm telling you, Muslims, it is in the Quran in Arabic.
Wow.
It tells you the white man is the devil in the Holy Quran, the 51st chapter.
Looks scary.
That girl will bite you. It's not like she's ugly, she's a pretty girl.
Look.
You know, it's not like I gotta keep reiterating people think Nuwaupians are not racist.
Right.
It's not, you have nothing against. My wife was white. My wife, the two daughters, was white.
Right.
She was Spanish, but Listener was white. She was white. Okay. And so people need to stop this.
Right.
It's not, you have nothing against. My wife was white. My wife, the two daughters, was white.
Right.
Damn.
Oh,
Yo, Nuwaupu is dumb, yo.
Oh, but damn. Well, he's busted again.
Oh boy.
Where are the questions? Where are the questions at from the audience? I know it's people.
Hello? Oh.
Let me see what type of questions anybody has.
Tariq, you say you had something about that the picture, right?
Yo, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I hear you very well.
Well, I kind of had a question also, but like a little statement as well, because if you look at the correlation between child molestation, music, and teaching, you'll find Dr. Malachi York, and then you'll also find Africa Bambaataa. And Africa Bambaataa was also on the land behind the pyramid making a video talking about free Malachi York. So he's very much involved in Nuwaupians, so to speak, and in trying to get Malachi York free. So he had some type of correlation. So that was my statement. And then also my question would be along the lines is maybe if anybody on the panel have any insight on this correlation between Africa Bambaataa and Malachi York, because, you know, you're looking at a pattern of child molestation that they both was involved in. So, like, I mean, if you know, so that was my question.
If I could say something on that, there's a brother that I'm close to right now that was part of Zulu. He is an ex-Nuwaupian. I ain't gonna say his name because he's not here, so I'm not sure if you want me to disclose that. But he was actually molested by African Bambaataa, and you know, he told me how back, and going back to the 80s, you know, he would explain how, you know, Bambaataa back then would make the correlation between the Nuwaupian nation and Zulu, and he believes that there's definitely some connection there as far as the tactics, because he used the same type of recruiting tactics that York did. He eyed younger children. The same thing with movies. That's how he was molested. Bambaataa would invite him over to the house, and he'd say he'd come in the room, and there would be a porno on, and then there'd be some dude on the other bed naked. And, you know, he used the same tactics, because I'm listening to some of the victims, and I heard what you said earlier, Tariq, and some of the stuff that I've read and working on the case. it seems like Bambaataa used the same same type of recruiting tactics, and this all went on in the Bronx houses. You know, because he was actually the president of the chapter of Connecticut Zulu after he left New York. So there's definitely a correlation there. And it's funny how Nuwaupians don't talk about Bambaataa no more when they were using him at one point as some great promoter of his freedom. It's funny now how you don't hear a peep out of him. I bring that shit up all the time. I'm like, how come you guys ain't bigging up Bambaataa? Now it's funny how that shit just died out. And just a few months ago, it was all over YouTube. And now all of a sudden, this dude has just disappeared and faded, and the same thing. I know I hear Brother Poppy speaking out all the time, a couple of the victims, but I'm almost seeing the same recycled thing where everybody's more interested in protecting Bambaataa because of his legacy, but nobody's going directly to the victims that he abused. It's the same shit. So there's definitely a connection there for sure.
Hey. Testimony.
I wanted to add to that I don't know if you guys remember, I think it was like the late 80s, when Doc had one of the artists draw African Bambaataa's album cover. Him and Bambaataa were very close. And I remember when I heard about the news about African Bambaataa and him molesting boys, and I read some of the stories, it was pretty creepy to me how some of their stories are so similar to some of our stories. I'm not saying, you know, I don't know for a fact, I can't say that they did stuff together, but I do know Bambaataa's been a York supporter from way back in the day. He put his religious stuff in his videos. He's always been a supporter, and he's been around since the 80s.
That's true.
Well, this is also a testimony to, you know, the fact that you just don't know anything in real time, because the video that everybody's talking about where Bambaataa is by the brown pyramid and the black pyramid, I'm the one that's holding the camera. A lot of the videos that people see, that's me doing that with the listed victims, all those videotapes, that was me behind the camera. So Bambaataa, when y'all hear him say what he's saying, that's me behind the camera doing that. And I'm in my mind at that particular moment, I'm like, wow, another celebrity is supporting his innocence, you know. So I'm gung ho about that. And a lot of celebrities, people come through. You know, people don't know I worked in the studio, so a lot of the celebrities I had a chance to see, because the celebrities, it wasn't like we were getting actors or anything. We was all musicians, all dealing with music. So I basically had, you know, direct contact with whoever came through on the land, and you know, from M2May to Bambaataa to all these different people showing support. What's his name?
James Ingram.
Yeah, James Ingram, Daryl Brown, James Brown's son, all these different people. And I'm looking at it like, wow, these people are really coming out and supporting at the time, you know.
Jimmy Cliff
as well.
And
yeah.
I would like to say the interesting on the other side for me is when I'm seeing all these people come out to support him, including Jimmy Cliff. And I remember when Al Sharpton came and said something. And what was interesting to me is, wow, how are these people supporting him, but never trying to talk to any of the victims once, ever? You know, and I said that to somebody, and someone was like, oh, do you want to talk to them? And I'm like, no, it's not I want to talk to them. How can they just blindly go and follow a guy and go on the record supporting a guy and not saying, hey, you know what, this is my reputation online. Let me at least try to get my own story.
That's right.
The victim. So you're seeing all these people like, wow, nobody's reaching out to any one of us. They're just like going whatever they feel that they want to believe.
And also see a lot of people were demonized seriously, because you have people who left the land, but they still had siblings that still lived there, and even some parents stayed, and then some parents even testified against their own children during his case. So the overall image is that you had some deranged children who were troublemakers, who did not want to follow rules and regulations of a household, this and that, and he wanted to leave, and therefore goodbye, you know. So it was painted as a picture not even to contact or even to want to go and reach out, because it was assumed that, oh, they're just bitter, they're leaving, they're making up these lies, they're young, they don't know any better. you know, X, Y, and Z. So some of that has you know, was part of all of that stuff.
Yeah, I'll bring out something. Tariq brought up the question, and I'll bring out something which is a similarity between what's going on now and Africa Bambaataa that Tariq is actually involved with. One of the things that I've noticed from my perspective is that Tariq has received, from my perspective, has received much of the blowback and criticisms from Nuwaupians. Just like Africa Bambaataa, most of his reported victims are males. Well, with the Nuwaupians have come out directly at Tariq more than anything. And I think and I asked this question, I think Tariq was asked this question, I asked him that question, why is it he thinks so? And I think it's because they can conceive, and even Prince York even states it in one of the videos, they can conceive of York being with a female, but when males come into it, that's when they have the problem. And Tariq is their biggest problem that I see. And that's one of the things. And that's one of the things.
The reason why Tariq is one of the biggest problems because he's prominent right now in speaking out. Anyone who says anything. I mean, I've gone through years of attacks online and character assassination, etc. So, I used to be on chat groups and everything like that. I've heard so many. I mean, literally, sometimes I would go and, you know, like, file an online complaint about webmasters because they would take my pictures and twist it and do these things. And, you know, so anybody who speaks out against Doc is going to be crucified. So especially in particular, if you're someone who testified and for many years, you know, even though Tariq testified, he was off, you know, he was kind of in the woodwork. He wasn't really out there, like putting it out there, but he's been on a campaign like, look, you're going to hear my story and make your own judgment of what you feel is right. So that's why he's being attacked. But anybody who steps out and says something that can't be disputed, or they can't detour and deflect, or what about the parents? What about this? What about that? You know, get taken away from, you know, this man did all this stuff.
Yeah, I want to say something that's really important. That a question always comes up as to why are you all saying something now? And the answer to that is that people like Tariq and Niki, they're not just coming out saying something now. They actually spoke up when and where it counted, which was in a courtroom. They already told their story in the courtroom, but the transcripts has been sealed, so a lot of the public has not been aware of what was exactly said and the details of it. They just know that there are some listed victims and so on and so forth. But now let's reverse the question. So you have the listed victims who testified and spoke up where and when it counted, which was in the courtroom. Now let's look at York. He never testified on his own behalf when and where it counted. It wasn't until after all the court proceedings are over, now he has something to say in the public by way of these phone calls that are being recorded and played for the public. So people have to look at that. Where and when it counted, the listed victims spoke out and spoke up. York was silent. Now in reverse, now everything is after the fact where it doesn't have any weight. Now York can say something, or York has been saying something. The community has been saying something, and now Tariq and Niki are also still saying something. So people got to really think about that. Really think about that. When you ask that question, ask York, why didn't he testify on his own behalf to fight for his own life? Now, mind you, he is supposed to be having 76 trillion years of information. He can out-debate anybody on the planet. He knows when people are born and will die, so on and so forth. Commander of the Book of Life and everything like that. Surely he can out-debate a short-statured U.S. prosecutor who's a male and a female. Sure, he can out-debate them. So why didn't he testify on his own behalf? I mean, I know the answer, but I'm just saying that needs to be a question that people need to ask.
Yep.
And Niki, go ahead, Nick.
Well, and I just wanted to add to that, just to, you know, it's not about now. I mean, personally for me, not only did I testify, but I've always, you know, if anybody asks me, I've said what I said. I used to be on debates. Now, I wouldn't always use my name. I had a YouTube channel that was in a different, it had an alias. And I put out some of the videos and people would send me messages. I also had people send me messages like, oh, things happen to me too. I used to be in Brooklyn, et cetera, et cetera. So they're just getting privy to people saying things. But if they really did the research, there's been information out there for years. It's just, I don't feel to go back and forth and debate with people that's just basically ignorant. It's not like they're asking questions. Like now people are asking some questions, but for the most part for years, it was just defending him, demonizing us, and that's it. There was no real questions being asked. It was just about protecting him at all costs. They're still protecting, but at least now, because some people are finally getting a win to, why would a guy say I was molested? Why would this person, after all these years, still say the same thing? It's not about a now. It's always been there.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. And I say that, and I say what I said, Niki. I know you put in a lot of work and you caught a lot of flack. I only mentioned Tariq's name in contradistinction of it. And that was it.
I get that. I was just adding to it because a lot of times people say that, why now? And it's like, where have you been? So yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
If I can real quick, what's going to be interested in today is what we in January 11th, they got 9 days for their clemency, and to just show you how this psychological, here's going to be the excuse. Obviously we know he's still going to be sitting there. But the bottom line is this: they'll come up with the same tactics. Oh, see, you guys don't love him enough. He sacrificed his life for you. You don't really want him out. Or he'll come up with some space cadet shit that he was at the door and the vortex open and you missed it. That's coming. You mark my words. I'm telling you that today. How you know? Because Brother Anpu will tell you other opportunities that we quote unquote missed. He used those same. He's good at using verbiage and really getting into the psyche of your mind. So they'll place the guilt on the members. And I'm bringing this up because like Sister Niki is saying, the reason why they're so busy defending him, that they don't see through the stupidity. Because look, man, this dude is still incarcerated, running his mental fuckery from prison. And that's some deep shit when you really look at it. Yeah. That's some deep pimp shit when you really look at it. Because really, when I stopped seeing him towards 2012, I was telling Brother Chuck this. People ask me, did you ever see any remorse in his eyes? And the shit that used to go on in the visits, that's a whole nother story. I saw towards the end, not remorse. I saw somebody more concerned about if his gig was up. You understand what I'm saying? Because he really believes in his mind that he hasn't done anything. I'm serious. I tell you that 100%. He has convinced himself. And in order to convince us, he has to convince himself first when we were under that illusion. So he really thinks in his mind that he hasn't done anything wrong. But I did see that fear towards the end, like, is my gig up? Or people starting to see through this shit? And people got to understand that when that loyalty thing it gets you psychologically. And Anpu might remember this. And in 1999, when we thought there was going to be a raid on the land with all those zoning violations going on, there was always this. York would always tell me that, they might come for me, be ready. I mean, there were circles of us brothers that we stockpiled weapons. I know I did. We got a call when I was in Macon. I loaded a car with 4 or 5 brothers. We went to a brother's house that lived across the street. We were ready to go through that pylon shooting. I tell you that to this day, 100%. We were willing to go that length for this man. That's how deep, you understand, the loyalty spell is. I mean, guns ablaze, fatigues on, painted our faces. We were ready. You understand what I'm saying? That loyalty thing can eat away at you. I know now, back then, when we used to see the signs, we didn't leave. These were the reasons why we didn't leave. And it doesn't make an excuse. By all means, I'm not trying to make an excuse. But the newer cycle of Nuwaupians are doing the same thing. I see that when I watch it. They may not be doing it the same way we were doing it, but this is why they don't look at the facts of the case. Like Sister Niki said, they don't talk to any of the victims. And like you say, if you're a member of this organization, before you cast your allegiance, you would think you would want to, have that information. But they're doing the same thing we did. It's like watching it all over again.
But see, you got to understand that there's
hold up. Do you think that once he passes away, would that kind of, for the new members, would that like put a lot of his teachings to bed? Or let me put it this way. because I know he had something in his teaching about living for 1,000 years or some crap like that. So,
Yeah.
you know, would him dying, would that solve a lot of the problems?
I'm gonna tell you this real quick, yes and no. I'm gonna say yes. Some newer members, maybe those that haven't been so psychologically fucked, real newer members. But you even got nutheads doing this now. Everybody and their mother's gonna come forward saying their incarnation of Dr. York, and you're gonna see every nuthead, more nutheads come out of the damn woodworks than you see now.
Yep.
There are people doing that now. I'm just saying. No, because it's going to open up another avenue for a whole nother generation of Nuwaupian nutheads. But I do think, yes, some would I would assume, out of common sense, I would say maybe the newer ones that haven't been so afflicted by it, that they would probably come to their senses, because most people, you know, they can have all this knowledge in the world, but most people don't have common sense. That's the damn problem when you're dealing with Nuwaupians. They sit here and they'll spit off a whole bunch of rhetoric and history that don't even matter. But when it comes to common sense, they're fucking clueless. So I think I say yes and no. I think it would open up a whole nother avenue of nutheads coming forward.
Well, listen, I'm gonna say this: the doctrine attracted people who were not very skilled at discernment, and proof of that, you can look back, and I'm sure anyone who's been a member for a long time, old head, will know that York started a college chapter. It was called Nisi Phi.
97.
The entire college minded group left. The entire college minded group left.
That's right.
The brothers that lived on the land. Matter of fact, right before I moved on the land, that's when all of them left. Sajad, what's his name? I forgot all that.
Me out of Philly, by the way.
Yeah, I forgot all their names, but the entire college-minded people, the people that was learning research methodology in school and so on and so forth, they bounced.
Plagiarism.
Yes, they bounced. They actually, when they bounced, they actually started turning back and accusing York of plagiarism and all this kinds of stuff. So I'm saying that to say that you have a level of cognitive dissonance that goes on with the members today, and what happens is, if York is a failure, and the community and the organization is a failure, then they themselves are a failure, and people are going to fight that tooth and nail. So they're going to defend that basically with their life, and for the duration of their life. That's why you have older people still there, because this is all they know. This is all, because for it to fail, it'll be an embarrassment. It will look like they have to look at their child's face and say, I failed, and they don't want to do that. Nobody will want to do that. But these people will fight tooth and nail to prevent that. So there are people that will kind of snap out, but there's a lot of people that won't, because there's no reason why they haven't already. There's really no reason why they haven't already.
I just wanted to add two things, because you were talking about like Sajjad and some of them that left, and some of those people, those disciples that left, it was connected to an incident, because there was one of the Benats who was she was from the Philly community, and when she came up with her husband and kids, and people are talking, and there was a divide between like, oh, we're kids who grew up, the Benats who grew up together, but some of us from other communities. So when she overheard someone talking about their relationship with Doc, and was kind of shocking to her, and it got back to her husband, etc. And there was a big incident that happened where there was a meeting called to say who was talking about it, to let this person who just came up on the land hear about it. And when it got back to some of the disciples, they were shocked, because they were like, okay, we're everything he does, I want to do it. They were teaching, etc., etc. So when some of them heard about it, and they started to question, they were kicked off the land about it. But then there was also a meeting called to try to see which one of us said something to them. And then, because he was threatening to kick out whoever said that, but then people started trying to cover for the person who said it, because they didn't want them to get kicked out. It's just, it was a conversation in another room. Someone heard, and they were like, oh my God, because even though they were a Banat, they wasn't close enough to know the secret, you know, like what people were doing. So, but how Doc fixed that is that the next Sunday class, he started telling people, you know, before they went, he said, oh yeah, they want to be so much like me and they're jealous of me. So they, you know, he kicked them out and they're probably going to start rumors because he knew that they were upset because of what they found out and they were trying to question him. So I just wanted to put that out, that not all of them left because of the just the doctrine and stuff, and it doesn't make sense. But some of them found out some things that they were like, oh my gosh, we didn't really know. Like, we know he got wives, but we didn't know all this was going on. The other thing, like people were saying, was asking about what would people do. That I think a lot of the old timers who they don't want to come face to face, so it's probably easier for them if he was, you know, not, you know, if he passes and they don't get a chance to confront, like, you know, there's enough things that they knew that they could have done something or said something. Because I literally, one of the chats we were on, there was a sister who reached out to me because she heard this, you know, she saw the video, etc. And she straight up just apologized to me because she said, even though I may not have been in the bedroom, but she said, you know, I just want to say sorry because I've known you since you're a kid. I've worked with you, etc. I had no idea all of this is going on. But she said, I know there were certain things that didn't sit well with me and I turned a blind eye. And sometimes I wish that maybe if I knew more, it would have prompted me to do something, but I didn't. And I knew, you know, like I may not have saw with my own eyes, but it was enough. And she said, I ignored it because there's a lot of people, you know, they're so into the religion, they don't want to touch anything. So I think there's a lot of old timers who they know, or with all this information out there, they're like, oh man, there's no denying it. But they don't want to admit to it because, like you said, they don't want to admit that they were wrong and just say, hey, you know, we messed up. Let's start over. You know, like they invested so much. So those are the 2 points that I wanted to add.
Good point.
Hey, brother Garfield.
Yeah, I'm here, brother.
Oh, I'm sorry. Listen, I have to go and pick someone up from work, so I'm going to have to cut this short. But I have just 2 points. Pauline Rogers, who also testified at, not testified, she was on Montel Williams' show. She has she wanted me to say she wanted to get with you also, but she's not able to tonight. And she also has a book that's going to be released called Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, about what went on, naming a whole lot of names of people. So I wanted to relay that point across to you, and maybe you can get with her. And also, I wanted Tariq, if he could, or even Niki, or anybody else, if they could, because I'm hearing this from other people sending me text messages to ask about that Pink Panther doll and that little Elmo doll that they also spoke about. If you can touch base on that whole Pink Panther thing and what you saw, where it was, etc., and what role it played at the trial.
Well, you forgot to say the Grover doll.
Yeah.
The Pink Panther doll. Some of his wives gave him that years ago, and they thought it was funny, so they cut off piece of the tail of the Pink Panther doll and sewed it into the groin area and took some of the hair from the Pink Panther doll, so it made it look like a penis, and he kept it in his place. So, you know, a lot of the kids saw it. So when they're being questioned by the FBI and they're, you know, describing this Pink Panther doll and other things that are in his bedroom, and when they're going to raid his place and look for things, those are the things they found. So it's just like, okay, if these kids are supposedly not in your room, they have, you know, why is a child able to describe some toy that's in your bedroom? So, and maybe, I mean, what you could probably add more to it, but yeah, he's had that Pink Panther doll since Brooklyn days.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that came up at trial. That was a hot item at the trial because actually Richard Moultrie, who was the U.S. prosecutor, he's a very short man, and when he pulled out the the Pink Panther doll, the doll was almost as tall as he was, and that was like a big issue during the trial, you know, with the tail sewn on and things like that. So that was a big issue. But I wanted to, I don't know, Garfield, I wanted to answer this question. I know the brother's been asking it over and over again in the chat. And he asked the question to me, being that I was York's advisor between 2003 2009, did I ever question York's mental stability? If yes, when and why? I'm going to say this, that York's mental evaluation, he was evaluated after he pled guilty in the state and the federal venue. And when the federal plea was rejected, he was sent for psychological evaluations and things. And prior to that, he was examined, and he was diagnosed with I believe Axis 1 delusional paranoid disorder, right, and Axis 2 personality disorders. Now we saw that, we know that, but now you have to plug in the mentality of the organization. So when York was diagnosed with that, especially when it says personality disorders, York has a book out called Man from Planet Risk. And in that book, York says that that 8 different personalities speak through him and act through him. 8 different personalities. So when that report came back to a lot of the members of the organization, that was a confirmation that York has these aliens and these extraterrestrial entities speaking through him, because these doctors actually bore witness to it. So as ridiculous as that sounds now, that was like a clap, you clap your hands to that, like, yes, okay, so York it really is extraterrestrial, got all these people, because even the doctors said so. So no, it wasn't that we had to question it. It was just something that was almost more confirmational, but look, like I said, looking hindsight back now, then yeah, I mean, like I understand, like when I was visiting him towards the end of when I was visiting him, yes, I questioned his mental ability to comprehend what was going on, because he was choosing to do things that made no sense to me, that was counterproductive, and to the point where I felt and still feel that he wants to be there, that he wanted to be there, despite him telling people otherwise. He made it seem very clear to me that he wanted to stay there, because it was listening to BS being fed to him, and here I am telling him the actual